Hello and welcome back. This is episode 233 of the FReality podcast. We are gathered here today to hang 10 and remind you why you love VR so very much. As for our topics, here they are. There are some jobs out there that have you on your hands and knees a lot, like being a content creator. But we're going to show you one more shocking use for those scabby leg connectors that you call knees. Fans of laser beams who glomp onto their base stations at night will be happy to hear not just one, but two headsets are coming out to play. Jose is going to give us a spin through why Meta, Apple, and Qualcomm are playing golf together at the weekends these days. And future tech from the East will have you wanting to wrap your arms around your loved ones and cry. At the end of this, without any more rhyme or reason, you know it's the right season for releases curated by lead chef Jose Ramsey. And with the sizzle reel baked and breaded, let's kick it up a notch by introing our crew. Up first, we have Jose, the VR tech. I can easily imagine one day in the near future on famous show Storage Wars. We're going to see the TV crew break down the door on a bursting Miami storage unit to find not one, not 10, but 271 bubble-wrapped headsets. Why are there pretty little ribbons on every single one? Well, I'll tell you why. Because this man right here loves his tech, and he won't let his hardware down, not even on Valentine's Day. No way. No forlorn, discarded headsets in this man's life. In any case, how are you doing, Jose?
Yo, what's up, you guys? You know what's really funny? When you started imagining the Storage Wars scenario, I actually imagined being inside the storage as they're opening it up and be like, nobody touches my precious. But you know what? I like your scenario a lot more. Oh man, I am feeling so energetic, man. I'm back on my feet, feeling just soaked up the energy and just so much good stuff happening. We'll talk more about it later on, but during all of that, I've been hyper obsessed with a game that I just was desperately to bring up into the podcast. It's not a VR game, but I've been playing it on in two form factors. One, using the XReal as a spatial display on my bed, just laying down with like the display over my head. And two, I've been using the XR Elite, so my goggle headset mod, just playing it sitting down in the my private cinema, but it's called Sea of Stars. So it is a retro-inspired modern game. It is absolutely phenomenal. It is, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Stardew Valley, which kind of like re-brought a lot of mechanics to the pixelated form factor, right? So they brought in mechanics and just the art style and everything that they could do with the art style, with the modders. This is more of a RPG game, similar to Star Ocean, Tales of Mana esque genre.
Nice.
But just the platforming and the navigation amongst the map, it's just so good, especially seeing it in by yourself in a spatial display or even like virtual cinemas. It kind of brought me back to that childhood, sitting down in front of the big TV playing like Super Nintendo games.
Yep.
Kind of feeling. This game is so good. It looks so great on these devices, and I highly recommend for people that are into old school RPGs. I don't want to spoil too much. It's traditional RPG. You're two warriors on a mission and evil bad guy, but it's really the navigation through the story. The story's actually fun, but it's
feels great to find a game that gives you that old school gamer high.
100%.
Your setup that you described is wonderful, and it's something that in the last year I've certainly found for myself. It's that license to disconnect and not be distracted from the art that you're then experiencing firsthand. And it actually gives you, like in today's distracted era where everything wants your attention, to push you a notification, all that kind of stuff. For now, I'm saying for now because I see some hazard in the future. For now, you put your headset on. It's a very simplistic environment. It's
100%.
just your screen in the void, or it's just, notifications aren't in there unless you really work with one of those headsets. I think the HTC ecosystem can support it. You're not getting text messages, phone calls. Nothing's...
Turn them all off.
Even
Turn them
animals,
all off.
And
it's really interesting you're saying that, but it even goes down to the software, to the game itself, right? It's inspired by retro games, so there's no like world hub or maps or connected multiplayer experiences, and down to the mechanics. You start to realize what is it that connected us to these childhood games, and as we get older, it's exactly that. You start taking a serious appreciation for sensory deprivation almost, right? Which is, I want to focus on this, you know what I mean? And not necessarily have so much noise.
That's a great notion. It's a sensory deprivation tank, really.
Yeah,
but
truly
like a gamer sensory deprivation tank, which just sounds awesome.
I'm so glad you said that. I don't remember who had said it, but Jonathan Chavez, who's my biz dev behind the scenes for my company, a really smart dude, but he was talking to me about how some people are there, the people that are working for enterprise VR headsets, they call it noise canceling for the eyes, right?
Oh,
and
cool.
that's what they're. It's a really cool term, right? And
that's a great
when you
term.
said that, you reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Noise canceling for the eyes.
Is there a sensory like deprivation tank with VR? I mean, I guess that's like liquid and I mean, but they have water slides with, VR headsets, so they can make deprivation tanks with VR headsets.
I don't think you're being depraved if you're feeling like you're being flown down.
No, but I mean, like the water combined with
what Zim did before the meditation one. How is that one called again, Zim? The one that you did before.
Sound Self?
Yes,
Sound Self.
exactly. Yeah, I think that comes close to that as well.
It's close, but it's so funny when Jose and Adam were just exchanging there. I imagine some poor bastard in a sensory deprivation tank going down a water slide, who in the sensory deprivation tank has a headset like an old.
No.
Can you imagine your stomach in that
I'm pretty
situation?
sure that's being done in some like black site as an interrogation tactic.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that sounds like fun, Jose. And I do recommend, like, some people, and I was totally there myself in the earlier years of VR, where it's like, I'm a VR purist. I'm going to only play VR games ever. I'll never, stream or broadcast or do a video of anything but VR, and anyone who does is blasphemy. But then you kind of relax back into, I'm still a gamer and I still love this stuff. And so it's a lovely halfway house to kind of be able to experience the games that you love in flat brought into the kind of sphere, the world of virtual reality, and still leverage that technology. And for some reason, it's like, it's relaxing and immersive in a way that steps beyond whatever your real setup is. I mean, you don't...
We're going to talk about that more later on, but there's a lot of reason why what you just mentioned is going to become fundamentally much more cooler in the years to come. So
I can't wait till that segment. So cool stuff. Well, welcome back to the podcast, Jose, since last episode. All right, next one. Settling into his new nest and getting ready for the leaves to turn color, this audio engineer, devout Zen botanist, and ready-for-hire neuroscience mechanic will take your perpetual motion machine and spread rumors that you don't know the hell what you're doing. Mind his battery-operated drill, because it gets angry. What do you think happened to Nathan and Mike? Just saying. This lad doesn't mince words. Instead, he sharpens knives. But he's a Cheshire cat, so let's everybody give Rowdy a pat. Let's go, buddy.
A pat? Yeah, I need a pat sometimes, for sure. I'm doing all right, trying to settle in here. It's been quite an experience so far, just buying furniture, robbing IKEA. Got a lot of experience in that in VR.
One moment.
I think you've got an
Apparently
echo going
echo.
on, Rowdy.
Yeah.
A big echo. The
Got a
reverb.
on OBS
I heard you
side.
got the remix going.
We're going to have Rowdy take a quick
Okay,
look.
there we go. I think that should fix it. I think I turned something on I shouldn't have turned on. I think that fixed it.
You have
Big
to
echo.
Happens all the time, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
for
a bit
good
airy
looking
in
chap
here.
like yourself.
It's a bit airy. Don't have too much furniture yet. Just like reverbing all over the place. Actually, I currently am renting a church. So I
Man, that would be fun for like a month, Not sleeping on the pews,
Just
though.
me
Those
and my
things are-
organ, But no, I've been doing all right. I got into playing some Abzu. Are you guys familiar with that game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I got it like
The
a
water
while
one?
ago, and it's so relaxing. I mean, I don't like the shark
100%.
inter bits. I thought they should have left that out because I wanted to chill. All of a sudden, I got like a shark in front of me, which was a little bit less. But it's it's such a cool little if you're because I often game just to get away a little bit from like a lot of stuff that's been going on. So like having that kind of experience just makes things so much nicer, so much easier to go back to work then the next day. But yeah, that's what I've been playing in the past week. I haven't played it that much. I played it.
For those who don't know Abzu, it's like Finding Nemo for adults, I think.
Yeah, very, very well descriptive. I love that one. Yeah, Finding Nemo for adults. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just floating around, and trying to like find things. I think that's the point, and then unlocking a new section. And that's kind of fun.
Is that on PC then?
Yeah, it's on Steam then, or on Epic Games. Either one of those two.
Cool, man. That's a good one. I never finished it, but I had a little wander about years ago on Switch, But yeah, it's one of those you just kind of, like you said, you gel.
Exactly.
You piece out, and yeah, it's good. Well, we all need a bit of piecing out in our lives. Great stuff, Rowdy. Over to our final radio broadcaster. We've got a shy, homely, keeps to herself type, always proper and polite, never rustles any feathers, well-mannered, and hold up, small correction here. Studded leather, biker chick, tattoos from head to pinky toe, recovering talcoholic, that's talcum powder addiction, ladies and gentlemen, and the lead proprietor of Jizai Arms, which we'll get to later on. How's your dog these days, Adam?
I can't wait to get to that section because it's so confusing for anyone who doesn't know. I know, it's like, where's this show going? But yeah, between like Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield, trying to like I don't know.
Wait, did you buy Stargate?
You went to Starfield as well?
I did. I got Starfield, not the $100 early access version. But I was like, screw it. I like Bethesda games. I liked Fallout. I liked Elder Scrolls. So I ended up getting it. And I like it so far. I mean, I know there was a lot of drama on Twitter about like there's pronouns and people NPCs look weird. And it's like they're all randomly generated. Like, what is this? I don't know.
What's your class?
I think I picked like. I don't remember because they're not like normal ones. Are you talking about Starfield, right? Not Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, Starfield. The backstory, I think they're called.
I picked like a stealth I remember the little attributes I picked. It was like stealth, melee, and something else. So it's kind of like I went more of like a gangster thug route on mine.
Yeah. Spot on, right?
It's got like a neck tattoo. But as far as like the VR side of things, I try to be good and dabble a little other than just all the flat screen stuff all the time. I watched a couple of, I really wanted to get into VR films more. So I finally watched Invasion and what was it? Paper Birds, part 1 and 2. Yeah, and nice. Man, I really want, like, I don't know, are there still VR like film experiences being made, or was it kind of like to the 2017 era and then it just all went gaming? Because I'm like, this is actually really cool, and I like that they make parts of it interactive. It's not like you don't want to be fully interactive the whole time, but the parts where they are perfect. Like, I don't want to spoil it, so just go watch it. I would
say check out Atlas V. They're also behind like Loomy Eyes and a few others, but I've seen them come out every year pretty consistently with something that's like that. The other one from the past, which was a very interesting project and really stemming kind of on the AI side, was Wolves in the Walls, which was, if you haven't experienced it, it's pretty incredible.
That's really good.
I forget the name that they coined for it, but you basically interface with a little girl who's backed up by, I'll call it an AI language processor in the cloud, and you can have like conversation, and I think that's actually evolved to the point where they're coming out with a separate app. But those projects are pretty astounding. The other one was, what was that band one, Rowdy? I remember you and I both enjoyed on the Quest platform.
Why?
It was like a punk rock or a ska band.
Yes.
Oh, band. I thought you meant band as in like it was, no more on the Quest store inappropriate,
Oh, man.
Yeah, like what kind of content
Church of
is
Rowdy
this?
will not allow.
Yeah, exactly. I
Battle
forgot the name of it. Is Battle Scar. Yes, that's it.
Thank you
That
very
sounds
much,
really good.
Arcane. Arcane Mage in the chat helping us out.
To add real quick to that, yesterday Roblox had their developers conference, which they were boasting insane numbers and stats, but in that their CEO teased a potential Hunger Games movie reimagination for VR. So he literally, I'm talking about within the first 5 minutes of the press conference, they boasted the 6 billion, the 6 million users. Actually, if you want me to run those stats real quick later on, I can. But,
is this gonna be Roblox style though? So it's gonna be like a Lego movie Hunger Games?
if you want me to get into that, they had a 4-hour developers conference.
Wow.
I actually wrote some numbers here real quick.
Wait.
4 hours of Roblox?
You attended or somehow
No, I
kept
watched.
your attention on a 4-hour
Listen, guys.
4-hour Roblox conference?
Listen, guys. Listen. I love the VR industry, but I'm also trying to make some money. So I gotta pay attention to where, and it's really, so if you want me to, and I'll explain to you why I watched it with data, right? 65 million users a day. It's been growing exponentially for the last 15 years. 2.5 average hours of use a day of every single one of those users. And the limitation of that is the headset battery life. That's about 1 billion hours a day in engagements.
All right.
15
I got one
million
question though,
experiences.
Jose. How much did they pay you?
Yes, sir.
How much?
I wish I was. We're talking about the stats that the guys were talking about, and leading into their big partnership with Meta, which is they talked about human verification and about humans eventually having an identity that they can carry on to the digital space, and they're going to have to partner with companies that are building that infrastructure. And now you understand Meta's play in this space, but they're talking about real, digital beings and essentially being carried and attached to your name. So
I was
they're
trying
talking
to figure that out. Yeah. So what's the connection back to the Atlas V stuff and all that? I mean, you were talking about the film. So
Yes.
basically, it's
They
a
talked about
heads up, look
synchronous
forward
movie
to
experiences.
Roblox
Yes.
Battle Royale film.
movies.
And-
Yep.
Okay. And then what was this digital character piece that you were just talking about? I was
Yeah.
missing.
So they're talking about asynchronous existences, and they're talking about reimagining movies that already existed be brought in virtual spaces. So they're not just building, revisiting movies, they're reimagining them from the ground up as franchises that pretty much exponentially grow. Essentially what VR Chat is doing, but business and
So-
blocked out in Roblox. And so, for example, what I'm imagining is you could have the Jurassic Park franchise launch in there. You could experience that firsthand, whether you're a flat player or you happen to be in VR and experience the richness of VR in that. I see where they're going, right? It does look, because in the end of the day, there was that whole push about virtual real estate. That's what these games are. It is the actual embodiment of this is what the metaverse kind of is, and people are staking out their land claim. And big business want, like you said, Jose, people want money, so they put their stake in, and they're like, I want to grow with you, and everyone wants to grow together. So yeah, exciting.
There's a lot of money, and especially in movies. That's why I said it's like, yeah, there's a lot of financial interest in the movie space for VR.
So, if you're telling me Roblox movie, that needs to be like a particular kind of movie, right? They're not gonna make some steamy hot scene from a particular X-rated movie to put that into Roblox. I mean, they could, but it'd be more hilarious than serious, then, right?
I'd watch that.
The CEO described it as imagining that you can walk around each character and get a unique perspective of where each character is during the film. That's how he described it.
Okay.
It's pretty much the movie is persistent. He talked about concerts that are occurring.
Exactly.
He even talked about AI being used to make these like worlds be as lifelike as possible.
Right.
He talked about actually one of the exact example is he used history in ancient Egypt and then revisiting Egypt be brought back to life, including civil all of this. And the reason that blows my mind, and it's because I don't know the exact number of attendance, but they announced a full developers conference room hall, and they gave every single person in attendance a Quest Pro.
I heard about that.
What?
Yeah.
Say that again. So
Yeah.
everyone who attended in person to the
Got a Quest
Roblox
Pro.
conference
Yes.
got a Quest Pro.
Who
Yes.
like? So what were the people coming to this? Were they like anybody
developers.
who's a fan of
Developers
Roblox? Okay, just
conference.
developers. Okay.
Yes, they actually mentioned a big push from. They significantly highlighted Japan before everything, and immediately when you think of Japan and you think of virtual worlds, you think of VR chat, and it was almost like an instant association. And they were like, oh, we actually started cannibalizing the Japanese client base and customers. I think they mentioned, maybe I wrote it down. It went viral last year, a 33% increase, 107% increase in sales. Like people are buying digital items in Japan.
Huh.
Like they were specifically mentioning the Japanese audience, and I think Brazil is also a huge booming market. Kids are winning because remember, these executives, these investors, their kids are on Roblox. So what determines the moves, and the data these guys were talking about is terrifying. When you start going later on in the conference, they start talking about visual persistence and ads, and they'll be able to determine like how long a person actually gazes at an ad, what part of the ad that they're looking at the most, so they'll be able to place the data there. It's
Those conversations are things that like I try to stay away from because I know they're happening, and it's like it's just that it's the big corporate perspective. Taking it back a step, while we still can look at non-blocky objects, I want to know, as a fellow Bethesda fan, I know, Adam, you were massive into Fallout and stuff like that. So what's your reaction to Starfield? And with that, I also want to ask, what do you see happening in the VR mod space? Like, do you think it's the kind of game that could be modded readily, or do you think that there's a lot of it in terms of how it's designed right now that's going to make that a challenge?
There's a lot of menus, unnecessarily so, I feel like if you want to go to a planet or land on a planet. So I feel like in those cases, it might be awkward a little in VR, because instead of actually like flying and landing, it's a lot of like cinematics, which to me, it's not that big of a deal, flat screen. And I know a lot of people complained about that. I'm like, yeah, I wish it was this way, but it's not going to get me to give it a negative review on, all the things. It kind of reminds me, because I'm more of a, I don't care for the space genre, like being in space, but I love terrestrial space, if that makes sense. Like I love being on like planet side, and I've only played like maybe only a couple hours. So the first, maybe the only, I don't know, big city that you land on, it almost reminds me of like Cyberpunk because it's very populated. There's like a crap load of stores. I've picked up at least 10 side quests just because I'm going along to see everything in this city. And I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be possible to see everything. Because I'm determined. I'm not leaving the city until I pick up all the quests I can. And that alone was like 3 hours just in this city. So it's big, like the scale of it, at least in this particular place. Again, I haven't gone very far yet. Haven't really left this spot. Is massive. So I imagine someone's going to make it's such a big game. Someone's going to make a VR mod for it, no doubt. But as far as how, I'm not sure. Like, again, some of the, like when you're landing, it's just a cutscene. You're not actually physically landing. So I don't know how well that would look unless you're tolerant of the, when you get that flat screen view in VR, all of a sudden it's just kind of like, oh, I guess we're not immersed anymore. But yeah, so I think that like you could tell they didn't have intents of making it for VR in those moments, just because it'd be so jarring. But
and then
someone will figure it out.
What's dazzled you so far about the game? I'm curious. Like, what are the things that if it does get to that point, and our VR players and our Bethesda fans, like, what would they look forward to? What are the things that really kind of, got you starry-eyed?
the scale, like the first city, it's not a spoiler because you literally go there immediately. I think it's New Atlantis is what it's called. It's a big, like there's public transportation, or you could walk around if you want, or you could just walk out of the city onto the planet where there's just trees and stuff. I don't even know what's out there. I'm kind of scared, but like it's massive. There's just so much. So you could just, like, I don't know, if you could somehow hook this up to like a treadmill, you could just like do a mall jog around the city, you know? I'm like, there's just so much to look at in this one place. So I think
that's just one city, right?
Yeah.
Just one city. Yeah, I think it's the main city. Again, I haven't played it much, so that's where like all of the factions, you learn about them, and you're gonna probably get most of the quests. But it's huge. Like I'm afraid I'm never gonna leave it. I mean, I have like my quest log is starting to look a little scary, and I don't know if there's a limit, but like I gotta
Instead
go
of Starfield,
eventually.
Adam is playing City Field.
Dude, and you're playing this while also playing Baldur's?
Baldur's Gate, yeah.
And
You
Diablo
are
4 is back there in the back.
Diablo 4.
Well, okay,
nuts.
Diablo 4, I finished the season for that, so that one's on break until next season, so we're good. I had to make room.
Next season.
These are like several 100 GB games for my poor computer, so I had to like kind of just decide which ones I had to let go of.
The real good news here, though, is that like each and every one of us right now have games that we're playing and that we love, and that's like really, really important for gamer heart and soul, and so that's really nice to hear. So great, that's the crew introduced. So chat, thank you for coming out, and hell, it's honestly just really good to keep this VR conversation going. It's a lovely tradition, and we've been going for so many years now. It's an exciting train to be on going forward. So with that, I will just say that my main job here is to fish out entertainment and news from the World Wide Web, and for my fellow casters and your entertainment, I am very much a mature VR streamer. Although that sounds like I've got an Only Zims account, which not being far from the truth, honestly, but I don't. So on to my highlight. Okay. I know what all these guys are thinking, and they're all feckin' wrong. So, most of you who follow my wares know that in the public domain, all I've been doing is playing one game over and over ad nauseum. And these guys certainly figure that that's going to be my highlight. Well, no, it's not. Behind the scenes, I've been working on something far more sinister. In fact, this particular one has taken years of back and forth debate, contractual ping pong, and I can finally proudly announce a reconnection with my longtime favorite VR company, and the reason why I'm still playing VR today. I've signed on with Meta. So I joined their Quest Creator Partner Program.
Let's go!
So that's fun. You might see my face associated with them at some point in the future. The first time they reached out to me was about 2 years ago, and we got caught in a wee tangle of various terms, right? Rowdy knows how litigious I am when it comes to contracts. Since then, they reached out to me again. Frankly, they loosened their stance, changed clauses I wasn't happy with in terms of a surprisingly open negotiation of terms, and we finally did a deal. So now some parts of that are going to be under NDA, so I can't go into every little nuance and detail, but I wanted to answer a few things and then open for your questions, and then we can get on with the show. But this is a big highlight for me because, as I said, I used to have a very close partnership with Oculus. For those who don't know, I mean, even back when I was the biggest VR streamer on Twitch back in the day, we helped, Mark get on stage, and we were the moderators for the launch of the CV1. So we've been with them like throughout the journey, and it's a really close thing. So the first obvious question is going to be, does Meta now have any control over my content? Am I now a puppet of the Meta machine? And in short,
that's
no.
a yes.
Of course, that's a yes. And,
one on Apple now, one on Meta. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my main concerns in the first round was that there would be some, legal contract-based clauses like guillotines hanging over your head, and nope, those aren't there. Both parties, myself and Meta, both have outs contract-wise, but nothing out of the ordinary in that respect in case we change our minds or want to go a different way. Meta might give me free hardware or codes, that type of thing, invites to events and that type of stuff. Nothing's in stone in that respect. I'm still a free agent. but still also bound by the usual disclosure rules, which apply to anyone when it comes to promotion or clear advertisement. That's true in Europe. It's true in North America. I don't know the rules in Brazil or Russia, but for the moment, I'm living in Canada, and so I'll abide by those rules as well. And so you'll see stuff on occasion, marked in that way. But being able to have direct feedback with the company again after it's literally been 6 different teams I've dealt with now in Oculus, Facebook, and Meta, being able to pass direct feedback and help steer that ship, as well as help other creators who are on a similar journey, is really a nice thing. It's a really nice thing to kind of be back in that circle.
So
and then finally,
your highlight of the week is a boring, dry contract? No,
hell yeah, you know me, Rowdy.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, you know me.
paperwork.
Sounds about right.
Seriously, we're expecting some No Man's Sky like gushing, and this guy just brings a contract.
But like sometimes things take work, and sometimes they take push and pull and negotiation, and a lot of that stuff just takes months, right? It just takes months or years, and sometimes it comes to you out of the blue. I didn't know that they were going to come knock on my door and ask and say nice things to me about my clout in this space and all that.
You're so
but
good looking, Sim.
so good looking. Like, are you looking at my picture? Yeah. Excuse me, with somebody else there.
Canadian energy, man.
And the final thing is, I wanted to answer. The third thing is, like, what effect will it have on the podcast and my opinions voiced here, right? Because that's always been something that I've been very, very defensive about being an unbiased seat and being able to maintain that view. I've turned down loads of things in the past as a result of that. I think the effect is going to be very little, apart from me needing to be just a little extra careful when it comes to guessing about future updates, in case there's like a conflict of interest between something I actually know and something that I can't really be musing about.
Yeah, like that
but
Quest
honestly,
3 you were showing before the show.
was I? Yeah. But honestly, like that hasn't really changed, because over the years of the podcast, like right through the years of the show, that's been the case. Case in point, like in the past, Meta accidentally leaked some data to me that they weren't meant to. It was date sensitive. It never leaked here. Didn't leak in my live streams. I'm just a tight-lipped guy, and I believe in relationships. It's absolutely in my interest for VR developers being at the forefront of that. The platform owners, whether that be Sony or Meta or HTC or something like that, and then fellow content creators. Like it doesn't help anybody, and you guys know how averse I am to leaks anyway. I think it just ruins fun, and it ruins, business plans and lives, and just upsets everybody. So don't expect any of that. We are going to keep poking fun at Meta's marketing choices, because some of those are just wild. We're going to jab at Mark and Boz on occasion for their bloody tweets, and muse on what company future plans might be, particularly when it's kind of further afield and not 2 weeks out. And sorry guys, I know we are all very close and like to share, but I absolutely won't be giving you any special treatment either. So what the stream hears is what you'll hear from me too.
We'll say that publicly.
Yeah.
We know Zim, wink, wink, nudge, right? That's it. And then tied to this, right? And in somewhat related news, I had planned a trip to California to be there around Connect, which I was saying to these guys, I think, 2 weeks ago or whatever. So I'm going to be in Palo Alto from September 23rd to 28th. If you happen to be in the area, please reach me via Twitter DM. I always love meeting people who are fans of the show or just have known me, across the years of VR. If you're a dev or, somebody who works in the background behind one of these companies, I just like meeting people, to be honest, and that's why I'm flying out. So to be clear here, I booked this trip in advance of the Meta agreement. They aren't paying my way. They haven't extended an invite to Connect. It's a very exclusive party.
Should.
That's a shame.
Yeah, yo, Matt, if you're listening, bro, what the heck?
Should renegotiate a
Matt
contract.
showed up with a contract. It sounds like about No Man's Sky. You better take him to the event.
But like I attended, Oculus Connect 4, 5, and 6. They were all great events, and the peripheral stuff was even better. I'm just paying my way at OC, just like I did in OC4, just to go out, hang with people, some dev friends, who just happen to be around. And the best part of Connect for me was never the showcase itself, being in the room with Zuckerberg for the big unveiling. I mean, those are neat, right? Those are neat moments. But those were far from being the driver for me. Hello, Zoe.
I thought I heard
across the
meowing.
world.
Okay, I was going crazy. I was like, what's happening? Okay, that makes sense now.
Maybe
That makes
she's
me
trying
happy.
to
Little
escape
cat
from the-
moment.
Yeah, she's trying to escape from the studio.
Meowditation.
He's like,
Little
don't
meowditation.
go with Metasim.
Yeah. Oh god, and we're not done with the
Cat's
cat
like,
stuff.
what about
so.
the brand name change?
What about she just comes on. There's like a little like brand chain with Meta hanging from her neck. Yeah, that'd be funny. That'd be funny.
You're Oculus forever.
Hey, I am definitely Oculus forever. And actually, I said this to them as well. It was really funny. I had to get it off my chest. I was like, that branding change. I wasn't happy with that at all. And that's still the case. Like that'll sting for a while. But for me, the reason to go to Connect, even as a vagrant on the sides of the event, of the central event, has always been about the VR people, where padded intros aren't necessary. Everyone knows the power of VR, and they're already convinced. Like, we share in the thrills of the exciting technology, the exploration of all these brand new worlds, and just get to celebrate another's accomplishments. I mean, you get to see a dev go from being fledgling, spark an idea, and become, for example, Lemming and Gorilla Tag. Dude's a rock star now, right? And before, he was just showing up at some esports event and meeting him in the corridor and saying hi to his mom and that kind of thing, right?
Like getting a bootleg version of Pistol Whip to try out, not on the show floor, but in a hallway for the first time.
Exactly.
That was amazing, yeah.
With Denny, and I'm trying to remember the gal who was there as well. I mean, it was just so awesome. It's such an awesome thing to kind of like connect that way. I remember meeting Guy Godin and seeing Virtual Desktop for the first time, and then the next year watch his face drop to oh shit when they decided to release the exact same thing from Meta, with their Virtual Desktop branded exactly the same. But that's why we call it Connect, right? It's for that. It's not. And look, there's logistical reasons, I'm sure. I haven't probed Meta much in this, but I know they want to keep it close knit. It's a limited audience this time. We're still globally bouncing back from COVID, and I can only think that event costs, amidst the Meta layoffs and the shareholder concerns, they must be under pretty tight purse strings. Not just controlling the event, but keeping costs in check. So I'm not throwing any ill will at Meta. I'm not asking for an invite to Connect. But what I am asking is, if you're in the area in California at that time, take the moment to connect with me. You'll get a free hug, and
I'm asking for an invite though. If they're listening, I'm asking.
I'll ask on behalf for you.
Like, what?
I'd love to get this crew out. So let's aim for next year. I'll ask around, see what I can do now that I'm part of that conversation again.
Hey.
But yeah, Zim's going to go out and party with great friends in the industry. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And maybe let me let me open. If anyone's got any questions, I'll take them now at the end of the show, kind of thing. But let's get on with the news stuff. So it says, Will had asked, won't make critiquing them difficult. I really don't think so, because I've been critiquing them since the beginning. You were European, yeah. That's a good point.
Europeans have much less issues with critiquing a product that they receive for free.
Yeah, it's I've never had that problem in the past, and because the thing is, I started this journey as an Oculus fanboy, like hardcore. Like, I loved DK1 and DK2 before I even got talking to Oculus back in the day. Like, I was just in it, and so it's very easy for me to kind of like say, pull on Daddy's belt and be like, no, this isn't right, And so I think you guys won't see much of a change, honestly. But if you do, call me on it. That's why I wanted to open it here. Tell these guys here they didn't get the news heads up. They just want to be open and transparent, as I always am. And with that, let's move on to the news. And with that, it's a little bit of kitty news.
Of course.
This was not planned, but she's hiding behind the microphone. So let's kick this off with a connector from last time's podcast. Okay, on the last podcast we had Meowditation, like Rowdy was just saying. Pop quiz. For those of you, do you remember, you old fogies? What was Meowditation? Do you remember, or were you all just laughing at the time? Do you remember what it was?
I wanted it to be. I know what I wanted it to be.
Adam's has to know. Okay, Adam, go ahead. You're the A+ pupil here.
Yeah, it was a Canon, right? Canon's camera. They decided to have a bunch of cats in a room and have a YouTube video where you could like do panoramic of watching cats play, which could have been better in my opinion. I liked Rowdy's way better. But
me too.
It's cute. Yeah,
Me too. Stretching with cats sounds like a fun way to chill out on a Sunday morning. But now we've got a contender, and that's virtual Meowality. Virtual Meowality. It's a custom headset for cats. It looks like
It's
a fish
not
tank
real. No way, right?
with a cutout.
Yes.
And hey, if you're just listening back, well, this is the time to check out the video version of the podcast. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video of cats enjoying a dip in cat heaven, aka drooling while lunch swims by their heads, is surely worth 1,000. So this is a cutout in an aquarium style tank with cats pawing away at the glass and looking at the fish as they swim by.
That's so disrespectful.
So it's like projected onto the glass, so they're inside seeing.
I think
like
that's why your
reverse
cat is
fish
on
tank?
screen right now. Your cat has a lot to say about this. This is disrespectful. We're literally watching cats being tortured. Yeah, you see all these fishes? Yeah, you can't touch them.
Yeah, 100%. It looks like something that would be absolutely hilarious. You know, you always see those like Asian themed restaurants with the fish tanks, and it would be great to see one of these with the pop-up. Basically, it's a carve-out, kind of like you would have if you were touring an aquarium where you're walking through and fish are swimming around you, like that, but for cats. So I extended that a little bit.
Experience in Vegas,
That's
but like cat
being
version.
really hungry and then taken through like a tunnel, and all you see is like pizza and food.
Chicken
And
wings.
they're all behind a glass screen, and you're just like, just watching all your favorite foods, just touching the glass.
That's really smart. I want to see someone do like a 5-star restaurant or something, Michelin star, 3-star restaurant, and just walk through and it's just dangling food. Man, I would.
Oh,
No appetizers. You just get that.
appetizers.
Yeah. That sounds good. But yeah, that's virtual Meowality, just to kick us off for today. Okay, so that's virtual Meowality. And next up, cats shouldn't be the only ones having all the fun. I mean, they crawl into their favorite virtual world, but why can't we? I mean, what if you could be the lady in the ring, right? Crawl right into and out of the horror dimension and right into someone's living room. Well, now you can with Hauntify. So Hauntify is an app that we've showed before on the podcast, and they've got this working in mixed reality. And so now you can crawl right into what looks like an Event Horizon hellhole, and bam, you're there in the under, the nether, and meeting the Red Hot Chili Peppers on the other side. So this is a daunting thing that we've seen on Twitter, and I don't know if Rowdy's shown it already or getting it up, but
I'm getting it.
there is a
Sneeze.
I wanted to try that. Like, I have a friend who's coming over, and she's like, we have to. She saw it on TikTok or something, some social media, and she's like, "You're a VR person. We have to try this." And I'm like,
VR.
kind of. You have those friends that like know you're really into VR, so anything they see, they just send you, and it's fine. It's sweet for it. But I'm like, I don't know. Then do I want to be scared of my own home? But I wanted to try it, so this is. Wait, so what is this?
So it's
like,
essentially.
this new update?
I'll just narrate what we're seeing, right? So this is the mixed reality version of. Now it was already an MR thing where you could haunt your house with creatures and that, but now you've got a portal that appears, and you get on your hands and knees and you crawl through the portal, and as you crawl through the portal, you're going from the real world into the horror realm, and you're completely surrounded. So it feels like something like from Stranger Things, and it just looks terrifying. There's just something about not just all of a sudden being in that world, but like crawling into it that makes it that bit more eerie. And that's why I said it's a bit like The Ring.
Like it's still mapping out your house, except it's adding like a creepy filter over it, like an extreme creepy, goopy looking black texture. That's interesting. I definitely have to try it now. I don't know if I'm gonna want to live here anymore.
Do you want to hate your household? Like that's like this is your domicile. This is like where you sleep at night. Why would you turn this into?
I'll do it in the. It's black and white, so
that's even worse.
Yeah, I would say black and white would be more terrifying to me. No color spectrum. Oh my lord. Yeah. I don't know. This one looks like I'd be pretty terrified of it actually. So I want to try it, but I'm gonna save myself for a certain headset that's coming soon. And with that, so VR was good for. is figuring out your bearings with respect to driving a car. I remember thinking, VR should become a mandatory pre-test. Screw letting, 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds or whatever your local country's rules are on the road. Back that, put them in a VR headset and let them get some driving hours behind the wheel. Well, in Car Parking Simulator, which has been out for a while now, I picked this up on Reddit, and it was the dev basically saying, I'm so happy that this game is being used by people to get over their fears of driving. So if you're a worrisome first-timer, Mr. and Miss Teenager, just grab a Quest 2 or a Quest 3, hook yourself up with a copy of Car Parking Simulator. And truth be told, I think we just got disconnected, or we lost somebody. Who was that? Is that Adam dropped out? That's funny.
Yeah, and is Jose still there? Yeah, Jose's there.
Jose's still here.
Still here?
Yeah.
It looks like Skype went down for a little bit there.
That's okay. I had some problems pre-show, so it could be a Skype version issue. We'll wait for Adam to come back, but I'll keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't really drop out, so
that's good. So truth be told, right? This is like confession time here now. I never learned to parallel park. We didn't have to in Ireland. There wasn't. That wasn't part of the. It wasn't part of the training.
There's somebody watching the stream who's going to use this exact clip to use this against you. If you hit my car, you're trying. Saying you never parallel park.
Zim is the kind of person who drives around like an hour in the city just because he can't parallel park up until he can find like a particular kind of parking spot, or how does that work?
I'm sure I could do it, but I'm not in cities driving that frequently, and
right.
I'm not very good at that. I would say that in VR I've done it plenty of times, like I've done it, but if you're new to driving and you've got quite a bit of trepidation about the whole concept, I remember, this is stupid, right? But I remember going from driving a manual, going, I don't know how to drive an automatic. And I was a little bit scared of it. I know it sounds silly, right? But I didn't know how it operated. I didn't know what to do. And I was used to all the pedal work. And I was moving to automatic. So I went to a YouTube video and I checked it out. But like in Quest, you can just get into that situation. Know your corners, know when to turn in, all that. So that's one thing. So if that suits you, then Car Parking Simulator, there are things like that out there.
I love that.
One worth thinking about, another application for VR. And I still think governments need to cop on and bring this into their licensing program so that we don't have problems like what Ireland did a few years ago. There weren't enough testers in the departments for whatever, driving license, whatever they call that, DRL. And so what they did was they had 10,000 people queued up waiting to take their driver's license test, and they just gave them licenses without testing any of them.
Nice.
And that does damage over so many years, right? So it was like why? That's a very Irish way to solve a problem, unfortunately. With that, I wanted to say as well one other little thing. So we talked just a moment ago about Lemming, the guy who's behind Gorilla Tag, and he's working on along with talent in that small dev team on another title, a yet to be named spiritual successor to Echo VR. Welcome back, Adam. And
haunted.
You're haunted. Yeah, it was clearly did something there. But recently in August, we know that Echo VR was sunset by Meta and Ready at Dawn, right? Moving on to brighter pastures, taking away the servers for that game. And that horse is now glue. And I'm still concerned that eagles are making people into horses. But with that to one side, I'm curious what you think of the somewhat rough gameplay that we're seeing and where we're headed for esports. In particular, I know, Rowdy, you've been there on site with me before when we saw how much money, Meta was pouring into esports. And I think it got kind of inflated for a time. The bubble popped. We ended up in where we are now. It seems to be coming back in things like Breachers and Onward and Echo. Where do you project this is going to go next? These kinds of things. Is Echo saved by the Gorilla Tag team, essentially, in the spirits of it? Or
I don't know.
Do you think that it's still slow growth for esports when it comes to virtual reality?
Yeah, I think it is definitely going to be slow growth, right? Because like when you think esports, you think about Dota, and you think about Counter-Strike and like the big tournaments, and you have smaller ones as well. But those that draw big audiences, they need to have a market for that as well. And I don't know if virtual reality per se is already ready for that. I think it's really cool. It's much like I'm watching the Age of Empires events because I'm invested in that game, and I play that game, and it's a smaller community, but VR is still like a fraction of that. You know what I mean? Like it's the games there, like you don't have, for example, I mean, games where it would make more sense because you have more people playing it would be like Beat Saber, for example, because that's probably one of the more popular games in there. But then again, is that an interesting game to be making an esports competition?
I'd watch that. I'd still watch that to see a line of like 10 people go competitively against some crazy song, particularly if they didn't know the songs that were going to be played. And it was some kind of like battle royale Beat Saber on stage. Rowdy, you've just come up with an amazing idea.
I know, I have a lot of ideas.
Off a
I'm telling you, Meta needs to send me over to California, and we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
Roblox. Beat Saber in Roblox.
Beat Saber in
Royale.
Roblox. And we'll make a movie about it as well.
Following what you were saying, Rowdy, I completely agree. I think esports, and I truly believe the examples that you use them are correct. The ones that are actually making it right now are the ones that are very community focused, right? Ghost of Tabor, specifically, right? When you look at all of the community infrastructure that they're putting behind the scenes in the game, they have I saw something called like Tabor Radio, and they were doing all these cool stuff where they were trying to build community. Their Discord, I heard, is quite rampant and quite active. Their TikToks, their content creators actually really genuinely love the game. And I still believe that even that one is scaled because of the technology, as you mentioned, Rowdy. I think that esports and I think Meta, specific the Horizons team, has a level of data of engagement, right? They wouldn't release a platform and then suddenly start falling in love with Roblox, for example, if they didn't have the data and say, oh man, this is very difficult. Maybe we'll build infrastructure. Maybe we'll figure out building the tools. And we saw it with Super Rumble. The cool thing about Super Rumble is that it's playable on mobile, it's in VR, and also on desktop, right? It's multi-platform agnostic.
Is this the boxing one?
There's shooter. It's their Super Rumble, I think it's called. The Horizons shooter.
It's a game in Horizon. Okay, that's why.
It's a game in Horizon.
That's why I don't know it.
Correct. But here's the exciting part is that Super Rumble is proving, and I've been watching a lot of developers on YouTube. They're very, very active in the developer tools for building worlds on Horizons that any smart developer will be able to replicate. And I keep going back to 2014 to 2017. Any game that was built in those times with those low level hardware target are going to be able to port those games into Horizons. We're talking about things like Super Hot. I see Echo Arena being an incredible world persistent.
When you say port, do you mean cloned, or do you mean actually taking the code and porting?
Cloned.
Okay, cloned.
I mean just straight up. It will not, but with the social hooks that we see in Horizon, right? Playable,
and I would tend to argue that that's correct. Like, what were the Wild West? What was that Wild West game that we played back then? What was that called? Shoot.
Horizon?
No, not in Horizon. I'm thinking to use Jose's kind of analogy here of taking 2016, 2017 games and porting them. There was an infamous game, Dead and Buried, that we were playing at the time, which that model, you can see that porting over quite readily. And I agree with you. There's a bunch of games, like the Wizard or Wizards and a bunch of other things, spell casting, RPGs, shooters, gallery shooters, relaxation apps,
Yeah, but the problem the problem I think is a little bit like what Meta is doing is selling a platform, right? So you can't just cater to a specific audience. And with esports, it's a little bit the opposite. You cater to a very specific audience for that game, but the platform itself is not the most important part of that. And I think that Meta shouldn't, well, what I would like to see is them investing in more high quality titles that grow the platform, that bring more people in, because that would grow those communities of which esports, like, you know, would build on as well. Because I think if you just bring in more people to play on the platform, then you'll have more people discovering esports on that specific platform.
I agree.
And
we have to remember too that for a community, for esports to become an esport, it needs an audience. So audience tools need to exist. If nobody's watching, nobody's going to perform.
Right? Like
tools.
And look, they have home advantage because they own the platform and Horizon is there. And I've said this all the way along, like Horizon's like a poor version of Rec Room or VR Chat. Like I would never out of the blue, that's why I was smirking. Like I would never out of the blue choose Horizon right now over VR Chat and Rec Room, because those games I know guaranteed fun and some barrage of young kids slinging slurs at me. But, you know, that aside, if I can get my friends together, I can go have a great time world touring in VR Chat. I don't have that same comfort with Horizon, at least not yet. I've not been in there for at least a year or so.
Well, you should revisit it.
The people,
yeah.
And this is the one thing that I keep saying, it's maybe a surprise, but if you go in, because it's a policed environment, you have adult conversations much more readily, and you're hanging out with other adults. I know they're dropping the bar on the age and all that limit in there, but that was my initial reaction to it. That was the positive.
At the same time, I don't think that like camera tools and stuff like that are main priority for something like Horizon, because if you look at, like, for example, games like Onward or Rec Room, the camera tools that they have in place, either built by the community, built by the developers, or built by the esports scene themselves, they're very high standard. Like I remember seeing Onwards, on stage, the tools that they had available for making that an interactive and like interesting watch were quite impressive, I think. And I don't think that Meta of course, if it's in Horizon, some kind of esports in Horizon, that's different. But if it's like a separate game, then I think that the developer and the community themselves can do a lot to make that game very appealing. And I'm sure that Adam knows that very well with the company that she works for, that is something that they very much focus on.
Yeah, Meta doesn't have a great track record of having great content creation, recording, streaming, spectator tools. So I don't expect that to change necessarily with Horizon and not with the whole platform.
It quite frankly shouldn't be their approach, right? I think that's and it leads to something I really want to talk about later. But I think what we're starting to see is the interests of these companies now starting to be put at the forefront, which is what are their goals. And I think Meta is officially setting itself up to be and it goes back to the original rebranding to Meta. They call it infrastructure. They wanted to build the underlying tools for companies, like you said, Rowdy, to build these communities, to build those tools. It goes back to having the difficult conversations. Zim, they were talking to you and having these difficult they're engaging because now they're starting to realize, wait a minute, maybe owning it all isn't the right approach. That's not what a metaverse is. It's building the infrastructure and then bringing everyone up.
This is a good segue moment. So I will mention something that Jose spotted and retweeted. What I will call a weird-ass meta ad, which shows off industrial training applications, and then goes on to say that this is what people are doing in the metaverse. And oh man, I so wanted to fight you on this one, Jose.
I loved that commercial. I think it is by far, if I were to be honest, it made me cry. Close to Apple Vision Pro, the Vision Pro announcement. It was almost to me, it felt a redefining of the gears, but it also felt like not just a redefining of the gears, but also this is like the revealing of what was behind the curtain, that Meta was so carefully trying so hard not to make it the main message just yet, including with the Quest Pro, because there's realities of development, there's realities of adoption right? When the Quest Pro came out, nobody was talking about the world that commercial was talking about. Time that requires development, that required resources, conversations, scale, the tools that we're talking about behind the scenes for world creation. And that's exactly what Meta was talking about. Is they're not necessarily using the term metaverse to mean anything. They're talking about what the actual ideology behind metaverse is, which goes back to when Meta rebranded, all the old school VR guys were mad. That's not what metaverse means because this is... No, like it sounds like Meta's going exactly after that. They're going after an open internet where they happen to own or a very big chunk of the railways, so they're comfortable with letting those railways go wherever, right? It's similar to how Google helped foster the internet because they had AdSense going, right? Roblox is talking about human verification, plus they have all those data and those numbers. Why would they stagnate that platform? Instead, no, Meta's going to come to them and say, hey, use our human verification for human tools because we already have Facebook. Use our verification badges, use our ads, use our tools, and now all of these platforms have all of that infrastructure. Meta's going to let everybody win. They're not going to care if you're on VR chat or Roblox, and quite frankly, eventually, if you're on PC VR.
So for context for people who are listening, because I wanted to contextualize this advert that Rowdy just showed off.
Yes.
It shows a couple of situations, right? It shows an engineer looking at a plane engine. It shows a surgeon performing live surgery, and then it backs out to months earlier when this trainee surgeon was in an Oculus Quest Pro, Meta Quest Pro, and learning, right? So it was a lot about the training aspects of this, industrial applications. The reason why I felt that it was really weird, like I saw Jose, for the same reason that you're mentioning there, bear hugging the company. And I'm here with my Reddit biases wanting to rip them a new one for simply the phrasing and the application of language and challenge their definition of metaverse. Because I see Meta like purposefully coloring outside the lines. I agree with you that this trailer it can be a bit of a tearjerker in that it's dreaming about the future where it's not just one student, it's many students, and it is an interconnected, metaverse. But what they show in the ad is all these solo applications. And that's why I was like, I'm going gloves off. Let's box with Jose on this because I'm like, go to Google. Rowdy, can you show us the definition as per Google? Yes. What is metaverse and how is it defined? And then what we're going to do after that, there's a page dedicated. Found this today. I didn't see this before. Meta's got a page. What is the metaverse? And it's like a scrolly website. So we're going to show both of these and just talk about them. This will dovetail nicely into a conversation.
If Jose has it wrong, he's fired. That's what you're saying, right?
Oh no!
More than fired. We're taking him out like concrete shoes.
All right.
No.
Do you want me to read it out or?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. So, in science fiction, the metaverse is a hypothetical iteration of the internet as a single, universal, and immersive virtual world that is facilitated by the use of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets. Its colloquial usage, a metaverse, is a network of 3D virtual worlds focused on social and economic connection. So that comes from Wikipedia.
That was the Wikipedia one. There was a Google one that I had sent you.
Not the right definition, Rowdy. God damn it.
It's okay.
The
It's
one
a
that
little
I
bit
want.
woolly. I saw the Wikipedia one, but actually I like Google's.
Which one do you want?
It's an open internet. So it's the equivalent of saying HTML1 versus HTML5.
Right? I'm pretty sure that Meta changed the Wikipedia page, right? So
they updated it to their vision.
Yeah.
But for me, the term metaverse is, and I think that's where a lot of people differentiate, which is the science fiction approach and then the reality approach, which is the internet. For the internet to prosper, there has to be money in the industry for it to grow, right? The internet can be considered open, but there's also big playmakers in the conversation that get to determine who gets to be in the ads, who gets to have their devices seen, who gets to be throttled. Netflix, for example, deals with this quite a bit, right? Netflix, giant bills to companies like Verizon simply because people are using their platform in their homes. Like, that has nothing to do with Netflix. So, yes, the metaverse should be theoretically open, but it's impossible. So what do you get to do? You get to build infrastructure. You get to say, okay, guys, this is the web browser. These are the code bases that everybody connects to, and then.
I don't think that web page is showing right, Rowdy. I don't know if it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's popped now.
What
But the weird thing is, I don't know if you're right, Rowdy, because when I search again, the same definition I saw earlier didn't pop up. It was a one-liner.
Mark was on to you, man.
Zim was getting fired. No.
They're on me right. They're on me right now. But I think for me the crux and the difference between the future, right, is the social dimension of the metaverse. Like, it's not me watching a training video, learning how to be a surgeon, and then go be a surgeon. The metaverse has the interconnected fabric in the same way that the internet does, and that's not demonstrated in that video.
No.
It's decent as a video as it is.
That is there. I think what Meta showed there was the hyper curated battle fortress that will be sailing in that sea of an open internet. That is hyper curated experience. And the reason I'm bringing that up is going back to the Roblox announcement. This is why I paid attention to that event yesterday. My CEO, while watching that event, somebody who I consider a normie when it comes to VR adoption, heard a very specific part in the CEO talking about the tools. He talked about incentivizing the people who are in that space to, yes, of course, to buy a virtual shirt and a virtual clothing wear, but also to subconsciously incentivize them to create their own. And my CEO looked at that and said, that reminds me of MySpace. It made people want to, yes, copy and paste, but it made people want to invent. And you are going to see that vision of the metaverse. And Meta's going to be hyper involved. And they're going to win through it because they're going to be having your headsets to be the chip on it. Think of a laptop. Right, the laptop
is doing that already. You know what I mean? Like, this is what gets me, is that I get their vision is painted, and I get that Meta's defining the road ahead. Right? I feel like the definition was already laid. Many years ago, and they're coming in to grab it. And of course, it's associated with the Meta name now, so it's an important branding play. But I'm curious. So, like, what in that trailer, what about that vision and that message, brings tears to your eyes, Jose?
That's exactly what I was gonna reply to you, is if I were to be honest, what I saw in that trailer was them dropping down the gauntlet and saying, okay, we're not going to control the vision, we're gonna let you guys do it how you guys do it best, and we're going to just provide you the tools, the infrastructure, and drive the adoption. All the way goes to Roblox giving away a bunch of Quest Pro devices. They could have easily given Vive Pros or whatever. They didn't. It was clearly a meta incentivized approach to say, hey, use these tools. Don't look at the Quest Pro as the ecosystem. Look at it as the hammer and nail for you to build whatever you
need. Yeah, and
that's how I saw it. That's what brought the tear to my eye. I really saw them as a okay, guys, we get it. Like, we get it. This is what you want. And that's what brought the tear to my eye, because some of those platforms, I'm in enterprise. I recognize some of those platforms. Some of them are not owned by Meta. Especially the protein demo, when they see the kid pulling out that's not a Meta product. And there was another demo that they showed with the surgical tools. These are tools that already exist and they're very quite rampant in their being used in a decentralized manner right now. And I think that's what Meta's realizing is, wait a minute, these people are reinventing the wheel because we keep wanting to own the wheel. Let's stop. Let's just work with everybody here, guys. Use our infrastructure, connect the tools, use our Horizons platform, which is a cloud app. When you think about it, cloud is another word for DRM, right? These are enterprise apps. So you're kind of seeing the roadblocks of pretty much the evolution of how you navigate the internet, right? Meta wants to be your car.
For me, there are two issues that I have with this ad. The first one is that what they're showing right now, it's kind of a dream. It's something that is, in my opinion at least, or no, not in my opinion, I know this for a fact, this is not ready. This is not something you can just you can hop in there and do the things that they show in the video. This is something that in my opinion, is a video for investors showing, look, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing, trying to bring you on board in order to acquire funding, in order to acquire more companies, something like that. But this is not something specifically aimed at the market, I think, for starting to develop those tools. That's what I
think this is the beautiful part is you're right and yet wrong at the same time because the tools exist. Like the software that you're seeing in that demo, they exist. Like let me
flows like that.
If you pay attention, the problem is they're decentralized. Like I'll name two companies that come to mind: ManageXR and ArborXR. These are mobile device management companies for enterprise and software. They're storefronts. They're similar to the Oculus Store, but they're focusing on enterprise. So these guys are talking to the training. I was talking last week to somebody. I think I forgot the name of the app. I think it's called Ovation. But what they do is like learning how to do public speaking. Like these tools exist. There's people that have violin tools, the piano learning lessons using augmented reality. They have fitness tools.
Sorry, did you say they're mobile? They're a mobile XR platform. In other words, they're selling either
Correct.
VR or AR apps on the storefront.
Correct. And these are open XR applications that they are tackling something so new and so hard to build the communication for it that a company like Meta right now is not poised or equipped to have those conversations until that advertisement yesterday. That was exactly what they were saying. They're pretty much saying, okay, we have the list, we have the tools. Remember the Quest Pro release? The Quest Pro had games on the box, right? That was a problem. People talked about this. Like, wait a minute, who is this targeting? The reality was there was no polish. It wasn't the technology. It was the polish, the marketing, the messaging. But
we've seen these ads before, like, decades ago, where they're showing this kind of stuff. But how much of that stuff is actually going to become functional and put into production? And that brings me to the second problem that I have with this, and that comes to a more fundamental issue, I think, and that is, does this stuff work? I think that is a very big question, because if we look, for example, at training, teaching, working in itself, a lot of that stuff is still very physical. If you go to a school, there's companies spending millions of dollars on bringing trainers in to teach their employees something actual there. There are now ways of doing this remotely, virtually, using Zoom, using the spatial operations now with headsets. You can do this stuff right now, but companies are not that keen on doing that. And there's a reason for that, because even Meta themselves has been bringing back or scaling back on their remote workforce, because they've done research. They've done research and they've shown that employees that have started with them remotely have less performance or function less well compared to employees that have started in the company as an actual, physically going into the office and then moved to a remote position. And even the company Zoom, who has pretty much invented the entire, platform of like remote work, they've been bringing their employees back into work because they're seeing an increase in performance then. So that brings us to a fundamental issue where I think that, even though I think in the future, yes, we're going to see that kind of stuff.
And we got to get there. That's exactly it.
But we need, I don't think that the tech, even with what they're showing in the video, is ready there, because we need physical interaction with products, with tools, that I think we're not there yet. That integration of robotics and artificial intelligence in such headsets in order to actually get physical feedback and be able to touch and work with tools and collaborate with people like that.
And Rowdy, if
you're knocking out the park,
if you were wrong, then why would I be going out to just hang around and connect? Right? It's like it's exactly the reason. If I could do that remotely, if I could do that virtually in any effective way as the same conversations that you'd have rubbing shoulders with people in real life, I wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
Sense of presence is something that's a low-hanging fruit, but that's not what I was necessarily really going for. I'm talking about the productivity and the connectivity landscape. you mentioned that it can't, like right now, how do you track employees in those spaces? Microsoft has APIs with Windows Hello where they use it for the bar exam for remote users, right? They use it for court presences now where they use detectors to know if you're actually there present on the camera. And Zoom is actually building these infrastructure. Meta, and it goes back to the ideology of the vehicle. Meta doesn't have to figure out the tools and the software mechanisms on how to bring users into the office. All they have to do is build hardware with really good eye tracking and building all of the infrastructure behind the scenes so people build those amazing tools. That's exactly what we saw in that trailer. It is not just a vision of the future, it is a reapproaching of their original stance. You mentioned before, we have seen this a lot of times before, and Meta was trying to be really aggressive with their ecosystem, with their store, with their practices. We have ourselves complained about that. We have had people that have openly been disparaging about it, and I think they're dropping down those boxing gloves. It's
interesting that you see that, and I'm really hopeful that that's the case. As I said in my own conversation with them, to ever have a Facebook/Meta conversation and have them change a single iota of a contract. Never thought that was possible in years prior.
To be transparent, Zim, I didn't want to bring it up, but I have friends and colleagues and in the space and who are also going to be making similar announcements and same exact feedback.
It's weird.
Right?
It's weird.
They were
maybe they are evolving.
And it was really cool to get phone calls from friends and being like, "Yo, dude, like the conversations, the conversations, like their willingness, the positivity. It's really cool to see." And also on enterprise level, right? That's kind of where my day-to-day is talking to company and founders, being a founder myself, and the position that Meta is taking. Yes. The realities of any industry and any business that you have to make friends, but you got to be kind to make friends too, right? So nobody's going to want a jerk on their store. That's the reality. So, and I say that, universally to everybody that's talking negatively about these companies is history, is there. You know what I mean? You don't have to keep pulling out ringing the bullhorn. Is if they're trying, like, I think we should encourage it. I think that's really what I saw.
And I have to say this because I really like the fact, and I see you do this regularly. You're a fighter, Jose, and you're happy to, against the swath of popular opinion, jump into the ring and be like, hey, what they're doing is good. And you do that across the spectrum. And it's also not necessarily single coat, because there are some people who are just support everybody. We know those types, and that's fine. That serves a purpose. Yeah. But I like when you go in for a champion that you see, because I think you can see a bit sooner perhaps than others sometimes the direction the wind is blowing. And that's what I'm hoping this is, because it's good news if that's the case.
Yeah. Oh man, think about it.
The Quest conversation.
Pro, I think we should end it with the Quest Pro. Wasn't the Quest Pro announced dead? And they just threw a multi-million-dollar football season just started. This ad is going to be running rampant through all of it. Weren't we boasting the death of the Quest Pro? And
I was really surprised that Quest Pro was in the feature of this, because I feel like with the price reduction, the engineering, how it performed out of the gates, like they clearly had to rebalance the message of how they were selling it, but they haven't given up on it. So it's interesting. It really does feel like where we're going is a 3-tier model from them and what they're selling, right? It's the cheap Quest 2.
We'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to that. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to touch a little bit, and this was the dovetail into, after our metaverse scuffles out of the way, onto the ever-leaking news about Quest 3. So 2 things we've seen on Twitter since. We saw specs, weight, straps, etc. this week. So I wanted to share a couple of images that just splashed on the web, because we have a responsibility anyway as almost an archival system for the internet here on the podcast. And the first one I wanted to talk about was the straps, because, and more importantly, not the straps themselves, because we talked about that on a previous podcast, but the connectors for the strap. Mounts system will work with the headset, I think we said before we weren't surprised that was going to change a little bit. So it's not the same. It's not clearly interoperable with Quest 2. But I'll bet there's a lot of people out there like me who've gotten comfortable with or have several head straps that would be nice if you'd be able to port them to the new headset and just reuse them instead of needing to buy a whole new ecosystem. I'm wondering, and I'm going to point this question again at Jose, like, would a dual rail 3D printed accessory that costs $2 actually work in this instance, or is that going to be so weak that it's impossible? I think if you print, you snap into the headset, and it allows you to adapt another head strap for like almost no money. Like, what do you think? Is that coming? Is that possible?
Yeah, that can easily be done. Like looking at it on the pictures on the video, that can easily be printed out. I was like, man, I can do that right now, really, if I wanted to. We just need to know like you can probably determine it from the picture itself, the size.
Yeah, you kind of need the CAD model or someone to do the work.
Honestly, I see people figure out like they can do 3D replicas by like just looking at a corner of a box. I think this is good enough for people to figure out how to replicate it and 3D print it. But yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing we saw was a top-down view of the headset. And we've seen a few of these things. We had the unboxing on the last podcast. I saw rumors that the weight is about 15 grams lighter. So essentially the same Boz had said a few weeks back. So that's about 400 grams for Quest 3 is the assumption at this point. And the facial interface part, I mean, it seems like it'll be a nice leap. Price being nearly double, and the financial impact of coming off of the high subsidy, which was Quest 2 launching at the time with the huge, like the impressive performance jump from Quest 1 at a subsidized price of $3. This thing's coming into market at $500. You know, that's not an easy purchase point, in my opinion, because you're not getting any software with that. In contrast to the original. The original was like the obvious, Christmas purchase for every parent out there with a 10-year-old kid. This $500, I mean, that's a much more serious affair. You're basically buying a computer system at that price. So I'm curious how you guys think this is going to pull off whenever we hear about the announcement date, the actual specs, what's the battery life on the thing.
I'm actually surprised that they don't do more bundling, working with a company to do like, a free game or two. Because think of graphics cards. That's how I got Half-Life 2 was because it came bundled with my Radeon ATI, I don't know, million ancient now graphics card. And, graphics cards aren't cheap. Probably wasn't. I mean, I can't remember how much I paid for it way back then. Probably nothing compared to now. But even still, graphics cards still give you, usually they partner with some kind of game and give some kind of top tier game with this purchase of a graphics card.
Right.
And granted, that's just one component, but I'm really surprised that Meta can't, or maybe they can. Maybe they will do it with the Quest 3. I don't know. I can't.
Does it cheapen it though? You know what I mean? Like, does that give the right appearance to a consumer? Because if I think about Apple products, they don't do the coupon kind of concept. I agree with you from my PC background. Like, there's plenty of cards that I bought and I was incentivized to buy a particular one because it came with a package. It came with a bundled card. Yeah.
But I mean, don't you want people to try something once they get the Quest on? Now they have a good quality game and they'll have a potentially good experience, hopefully. I mean, I guess we'd have to be at the mercy of Meta on what they determine is good. But I mean, Apple's not really a gaming ecosystem, though.
So it's a very different customer base. Yeah. I still think, I've thought this since before they bought Beat Games, Beat Saber should come free with every headset because it just opens the door to you piecemealing and buying a bunch of DLC. It's a no-brainer to me. That should just come bundled in the headset. But anyway,
I think it's all about psychology. It's very, very mass psychology. I think they want, and yeah, it kind of goes to something I'm very excited to talk about. But I think what we're seeing is expectations of how these headsets are going to be sold in the future. Similar how even cell phones now, before they used to have the charger, the cable, now you just get the cell phone. You know what I mean? Like, buy your own charger, buy your own cable brick. You know what I mean? Like, the Earth and all that. But in reality is they're a software company, so they really don't make much margins in hardware. So they're going to find their way to make that as low as possible. And once that gets even to a tinier form factor, the box will get smaller, and that's just roadmaps being set.
Yeah. So that's that. Okay, so that's Quest 3. We'll know in a couple of weeks. Oculus Connect isn't far off now. And like what we saw with Hauntify, we got to see that Demeo is now showing off something some of us have wanted for quite some time, which is hand tracking capability. So being able to pick up and move and all that with full color pass through. Man, that really seems like, to me, that Tilt 5 is dead in the water. Because the premise of Tilt 5 was table with your friends, and it's quite expensive, and the hardware itself is a little bit iffy. But if you think about having a multi-headset household, it becomes really easy to do, particularly if you upgrade from like a Quest 2 to Quest 3 and you have a couple extra headsets. Give the kids the Quest 2s, have the parents in the Quest 3s, and all of a sudden you've got a 3 or 4 player game, and you're playing a tabletop that's amazing like Demeo with no need for controllers. So you can sit there with your chips and your drinks and swigging away and having a Demeo campaign. That's going to kill.
It's so good.
I hope that, because like sometimes I even accidentally move my figure and it's like goes on the wrong spot, or like you mean to go over the enemy and it just goes next to him instead. So I don't know, but I can imagine like with hand tracking, that's my only worry. Like I think that everything they've done is so cool. Like I love the pass through. I'm still just a little skeptical about hand tracking in general, and especially when I already make stupid mistakes with controllers. I can only imagine like, oh, here, perfect spot, and then the hand just like, flies away all of a sudden, and it's like, oh no, like that move that was going to be perfect is now ruined. So
the devs
I'm so excited
that, in my opinion. The devs should, when you've got a hand tracking model, allow, it's kind of like a mulligan or something equivalent system in a golfing game where you're like, oh, did you really mean to make that mistake? Like you can take it back. The house rules is what I call it, like house rules for engagement.
Yeah, when I played with Zim, he had that a lot as well. Like, he's like, oh, Zim, we need help. And then, oops, I by accident landed on the coins. Oops, I by accident landed on the coins.
I mean, it wouldn't happen that often, but when it does happen, it's just so sad. It's just, you're just like, there goes my turn. I'm just going to be sitting in front of this guy. Nothing can be done.
In the co-spatial part, that's what I liked about that little demo, that you can see it. It's actually anchored to, I think, like a surface of a table when they're walking around. That's the magic at play. That's the beauty of, I guess, at the end of the day, that's what makes ecosystems kind of important, I guess, right? Which is that these devices are in some way transmitting to each other also locally and telling each other where they're at, right? So that also creates a new level of a perception that can only be done.
And I'd kind of love if your concept about the 3 elongated Quest 3 markers do become spatial markers and help to round that environment so it feels like a base station tracked experience. It'd be kind of neat if that comes into it, but again, that's getting a little bit beyond current engineering. But I feel like for Tilt 5, not just with Meta, but I feel like if they're not already on the watch out, I mean, I'm sure they are, but it feels like the bell is tolling for them because there's so many companies now with pass-through headsets in full color that's just closing in on the unique selling point of Tilt. And I don't see what happens to them 2 years from now. They just seem to be wiped off the face of the earth.
I was just seeing on Twitter like a few days ago, or X as they call it now. I saw that there was a drunk guy in Gamescom rambling about a dev unit that is an augmented reality headset made by Nintendo. So and this is something that has been like, if you know, but like this guy was in a bar, just Nintendo, we got the headset, augmented reality, sitting down experiences, and I'm like, people are talking about it now. So it's the idea of a augmented reality home console is it's probably way closer than we're imagining.
I'd love that.
If it's leaking out from Nintendo in drunk bar guy fashion, which is one of the most tight-lipped companies out there, it's probably way sooner than we think.
Gotta love drunk guys. Yeah. And you know what I also love? I love games. So let's talk about VR mods for a quick minute. Maybe to Rowdy's chagrin, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see. But first up, I want to say that I haven't played Firewall Ultra yet, not purchased it. And it was actually the one solo reason I picked up a PSVR 2. When you're like doing that math in your head based on what you know, what you don't know. I was like, okay, I can do PS5 and PSVR 2 and the all-in cost of that if at the end of the day I get to play Firewall again, right? Because it was such a good experience at the time. I hear it needs time, which frankly isn't unlike First Contact Entertainment to release not quite ready for primetime software, like they did with Solaris and a few others where they, the core of the game, the heart of the game, the fun part is there, but some of the quality of life stuff really needs to be looked into. So if you're into FPS games and you didn't click yet so far on what's happening to Battlefield and Call of Duty, i.e. the kings of FPS at the moment, well, guess what? There's a new challenger in town. And I've been playing it and like it a lot. It's called Battlebit. We have showed this on the podcast before, but Brad is going to... it looks like Roblox with chunky Minecraft characters and voxel visuals, so it's a bit low fidelity. But what it feels like is Battlefield Bad Company 2, because you can blow through walls, you're squatted up, night vision in the rain, whole squad marching across terrain.
So good.
Back in A, like it is great. And now there's a VR mod they're taking her away with, and this is not far off. Like in the video, it shows someone hopping into and flying over a city like Fallujah in a helicopter in VR. Man, like we are so close to exactly what I've been waiting for the longest time, probably about 10 years, which is Bad Company 2 in VR, please. And so,
oh my gosh,
please squad up with me and play this. We're going to have a laugh at some point. And the scale of it, of course, is the number of players. They can do like 128 versus 128. And I'm not so much for those matches because they're just too chaotic. I'm like a 16v16 or 32 kind of guy. But man, if you're into FPSs, that coming to us, even in blocky form, hell yes, bring it on.
Yes,
bring it on.
You just hit my heart with Bad Company 2. That's like, but I didn't play much of the multiplayer, but the story, like I love the Bad Company like story, the campaigns, like so like implanted on my brain. Like it's
honestly,
so
Bad Company 2's story feels a little bit like what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Like a year from now, we could be living that reality. It's a bit scary that we're in that spot now. But with that, another friendly mod from the modding realm of the internet. If you're into more relaxing alien life forms, who might on occasion also like to eat you, then why not take a spin with Motion Control VR Mod for Subnautica Below Zero. So for those who don't know, sequel to Subnautica, which never had official VR support, unlike the original, which had some VR support from the main company, then got modded multiplayer. So Below Zero is a pretty cool follow-up to the original game. Looks quite slick. And with this VR mod, you can even interact with your floaty hands. You can grab the fish and grope them, just like Rowdy was griping about all those years ago.
Yes.
He just wants to get his...
groping fish is not done.
Well, that's why you wanted it, Rowdy, no?
Yes. Exactly.
No judgments here. No judgments.
Not at all.
we don't yet.
As long as I keep it in the
colorful
virtual world.
That's right. Yeah, keep your kink in the virtual world. So that's Subnautica Below Zero. Look out for that one too. Can't wait for those mods to evolve and eventually hop back in. Only ask from Zim, of course, is let us take the HUD off, please. Okay. With that, let's move on to the Big Boy and Luxy Lady headsets for the podcast today. Are you a fan of lasers? Well, we've got two fancy schmancy headsets for you. How about the Starkly Battlestar Galactica Somnium VR 1 headset that's been in development for some time? We got a glimpse of this on Twitter. And I just imagine, like, you're some friendly lady and you've gone on your first date and you sit down and there's this guy across the table from you and my, what piercing eyes you have, sir, Mr. Somnium. The look of this headset is a little daunting, I will say. It looks like looking at a cyborg across the table with these odd eyes, very wide presence, almost reminiscent of like a Pimax style headset, but this thing is large. It's like a big black brick that you wear on your face and has direct pass-through. So like the Apple Vision Pro, which shows others your eyes, in this case, you get to see what Android eyes on the other side of the headset. But this has got a lot of PC VR folks excited. It is a base station tracked headset as well. So Somnium is pretty cool. I don't know. Jose, I'm curious if maybe this is one that you've kept your eyes on as it's been.
I mean, it kind of goes to what the importance of, I guess, a hyper-curated vessel in the metaverse. I think that's the best. That is literally a complete open alternative to what Meta is doing with their device. This is a open, programmable, developer-friendly from all aspects and toolkit. So it's not going to be very scalable in terms of adoption. I don't think that's their goal. Hopefully that's not their goal. I think it's for the people that want to build stuff and not necessarily share that data with a company like Meta. For whatever reason. I think it's a cool device. It's scary. It looks,
the look of it. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I don't know. I revisit. Like, I think it looks cool, like, and beautiful in concept. But when you see that picture of the guy wearing it with those little, I don't know. I don't like it.
Stop looking at me.
It
gives me creepy vibes of just like, I don't want to look at him directly. It just
there was I don't know if it's in that same tweet, but like but there's a picture of where they show like a pelican case next to it where I guess it's being stored.
Show that, Rowdy. It's he's got like 4 images. I saw that box and I immediately was like, damn, I like that better than the DK1 box.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought. And 2, I really thought that the headset converted into a pelican case. And I was about to be like, this is the headset I want.
Damn, it'd be so cool.
Bomb-proof headset. That means you can during the apocalypse. That's the headset I want.
That you'd wear on your face. Yeah. But I mean, there's something to be said about a really cool case. I know I wouldn't use it. Yes. And I know it's overhead on the price. Please don't, large platform. But if you're buying a headset like this, which is really niche and kind of off to the side, then it's awesome. Yeah, Rowdy's got it on screen there. Jam.
It's the whole experience of having like a big pelican case like that. Like, you want to see some cool tech and you just slam it on the table, just the clicking sound. It's the whole experience of like opening some cool high tech. It's like having a nuke or something like that. Like, you want to see like the launcher, it's like, and you open this pelican case up.
Yeah. And Rowdy, for your feedback, I don't know if you saw that, but apparently there's an audio blackout for half a second during scene transitions. So Rowdy's just taking back the reins. So we were expecting a few things to be a little bit iffy, having audio transplanted. Yeah, just for a couple of seconds. That's a standard fare here on the FReality podcast. I'd say probably our sensors coming in trying to grab us, but we'll look into that. And then the other thing that I would say is, if you don't like this headset because you're like, it's a bit big, well, there's another one. And it's only a quarter the size. And yes, it's big screen beyond. Now available ready for public consumption. So if you want this thing for Christmas or whatever, go place your orders, Simmers, and grab the headset that looks like swim goggles. And is just it's turned all of the VR headset wearers into kind of weird looking people. It's just a different form factor, It's like it's a really strange look to me still. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it. It's like slightly angled off the eyes or something about it that just makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
It reminds me of I don't mean to be rude or mean, but it reminds me of the creepy stereotype of the hyper goth dude that wants to be Morpheus from Matrix in high school and would wear like those tiny little glasses, and people would be like kind of scared. It's like, yo, is he a threat to us? But he never really was. Like, that's what those glasses make me think of, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you're one trench coat away from looking.
Yep. Looking like a threat, right? Looking like a threat. Yeah. So that's that one. I'm curious, Adam, is this, because you're a base station lass? Is this headset attractive to you?
I have been very, very tempted. Like, if money wasn't so it's kind of tight right now, I would actually consider it. And I love seeing all the pictures of like people putting the big screen inside of their other headsets just to show like the difference. But it's the looks don't bother me too much. I kind of like the shiny like sheen almost that it's got on the outside. I haven't read if that affects the base stations or anything. I'm assuming not. But this has been very tempting to me. So we'll see. I don't know. Everyone's listening. Christmas is coming. So somehow sneakily get that app and get my face scans while I'm sleeping. I don't know.
Don't worry, honey. I sold the dog and got you a headset. That's it. That's it. I love that plugging for Christmas already. It's only September.
Get my face
one
scans
for
in my sleep.
Christmas.
I will be okay with it.
Wow. Yeah, that reminds me. I had to, with floss, measure my wife's ring finger when I was planning to propose. And that is sensitive because if she wakes up and catches you doing it, well, she's onto it. She knows what's going, right? So.
Or you end up on a list.
Yeah, one of the two.
Just randomly cut holding somebody's fingers. Like, is that what it looks like, honey?
I just imagine Zim like next to the bed with like, dental floss and be like, zzz. And his wife waking up be like,
Oh, man,
this is not what you think it is.
It was one of the weirdest moments of my life. Like, just imagine, like Mission Impossible be coming down on strings, So, anyway, with that. I know we've already alluded to this last podcast, and I've probably dropped enough personal news on today's show, but I have just one more, which is if you're a casual listener, you'll know how hard I've fallen for PSVR 2's implementation of No Man's Sky. So I had to give this a punctuation point. I've put it to the test on and off show for 50 hours straight now, putting out about 25 hours worth of streams and not diverting my attention to any other game while doing that. I'm wholly absorbed by No Man's Sky, but today is the day I have to finally announce it. No Man's Sky is the best VR game I've ever played. It beats modded Skyrim, the game I played for 5 years, loved dearly. Flooded, and my PSVR 2 and PS5 were both destroyed. I would eat ramen for months, scramble funds together, rebuy the PS5 and PSVR 2, and even start a new save file just to experience this game. I'm not going to go into detail, as the journey in that game is just so bloody incredible. I don't want to give away the tiniest details, but there's a huge robot army that hunts you. Anyway, I've said enough. Better than Sky. As the fans, including Adam, you can bite me. This is it, right? I'm a Hello Games guy now. Era's over. 5 years with Vanessa has come to an end. I'm going to go marry a Gek and retire on a rare duo biome, tropical metallic world at the edge of the universe. I'm done. And as a human, I'll never be the same again. I didn't think this moment would happen. The game is incredible.
I still want to know. I don't know, because I asked you, if someone has played No Man's Sky on the PS without PlayStation Plus, how that experience is. Because I don't have PlayStation Plus because I pay for my internet, and I feel like should be good enough. But I do really want to try No Man's Sky for the PSVR 2. I just don't know if the experience. Like, do you need PlayStation Plus for it still to be good? Is it just like same No Man's Sky, but you don't see, you don't have people coming to your planets that you can randomly run into? I'm curious if anyone's done it that way. So
yeah,
that might help push me over the edge.
Yeah, chat, please do help convince Adam if you can. I don't know that because I've had Plus throughout, but the one thing that I will say is that the single player for this game is equally as enjoyable as the multiplayer aspect. In fact, I have just a hell of a good time. Like, I'll be in playing single player, and then 2 hours in, a buddy will jump in and we'll talk in a cave for an hour. Or, it's that kind of game where I feel equally at home. Yeah. Very few games do this, where I feel equally at home in single player as I do multiplayer. Like, one doesn't trump the other, which is weird, but that's how I feel about it.
I agree.
I also dragged Mike, our old host, into No Man's Sky. I say that. He actually reached out. He's like, hey, show me the ropes. And I'm like, hell yeah. And so we had a good blast of it and went through a bunch of things, found him a down ship. And that's the one thing I'll just take away from this. For those people who are tinkerers into their games, I found a ship that needed to get repaired. It's taken me like 8 days solid, and it's still not fixed completely yet. You work your way through it. And so it feels like, first off, you stumbled upon it. You found it. It's like finding a magical treasure. And the second part is, if you really like putting effort into something, like in a Minecraft day, you sketch something out on paper, you built it. Like I did, I put 3D glasses on a mountain with a team of 4 people. We just did that, mined all the hard elements, did it all in survival, I like putting effort into a game and getting that back. And the same thing here. It's an A-class ship I found, and I've just been repairing it with all these rare resources and stuff that you need to find. And it drives your mission, your discovery. And then at the end of the day, you pat your ship on the back and you're like, that's my baby. That's my baby. She's mine. It means something to me now. And so that's what's really just glued me to the game. And It's not a feckin' hassle or pain in the ass like Skyrim mods are, which they are. And I like the pain in the ass, but not everyone does. So this one's easy. This one's
Please
easy.
clip that.
That's definitely a quotable moment.
All right. Speaking of that, I've been on my podium long enough. At our forum, Jose wrote to me this week exclaiming of his love for hardware revisions in only a way you all know that Jose can represent. So with that on the horizon, Jose, can you please tell us what's got you so animated about Qualcomm?
Oh man. I guess first things first. We're talking to everybody, and I'm not going to get very hyper technical with the definition. So I don't want to get a lot of angry DMs telling me you didn't use the exact definition. This is for everybody to understand.
People like me, stupid people.
There we go. I'm talking to the mainstream. There we go. So I'm going to try to make it as easy to understand and digest as possible. So what we're seeing is a standardization or a eventual evolution of how architectures in computers are approached. And they're kind of, for the first time, being led by the spatial computing, virtual reality, XR space, however you want to call it, industry, which is a split on the road, is the best way to describe it. It kind of goes with the Meta Quest 3 announcement. You mentioned, Zim, the box form factor and the messaging behind it. There was actually something that leaked also along with those news, that there was a potential Quest 3 Lite in development, which is a much lighter approach meant to replace the Quest 2, but still carrying the Quest 3 form factor or brand name of sorts.
I think I saw that in a tweet crossing, but like, what was it? There was a leak or someone's musing that there might be a Quest 3 Lite. I've not seen much about this.
So the way that these leaks are getting is through a lot of data harvesting, a lot of supply chain orders. It's very high level speculation, but also using data to make the best closest thing to a speculation, and also announcements from Qualcomm, the Vision Pro announcement with Apple, and also seeing the roadmaps for our upcoming devices. We saw that with the beginning of the Steam Deck.
Sorry, Jose, just one question there on that.
Yeah,
so what is the Quest 3 Lite meant to be? Is it essentially trying to bring the price point down? I mean, what gets scrapped between Quest 3 and Quest 3 Lite then?
So if we look at the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, they run on something called I don't know the new name of the CPU for the Quest 3, but the XR2 chipset on the Quest 2, for example, it's all-in-one CPU that encompasses pretty much all of the operations that you see and play with on the Quest 2. Those chips have a theoretical limit on how much you can process within them if you're dedicating processes like tracking data, eye tracking data, the space. So it's this equivalent of RAM and memory, right? If you're using a lot of, you have 8 gigs of RAM and you're using something that uses 5 gigs, your computer's going to slow down. So it's the same kind of approach. The CPU is starting to hit theoretical limits on how can we make processing easier, which has led to a new industry called split computing. The best example that I can show split computing, and I've got some devices to show and tell.
Oh,
right?
Show and tell. I love it when he brings stuff.
Is the Asus ROG, right? Which is a handheld device similar to the Steam Deck.
God damn it, Jose, you have all the toys. I'm so jealous. I want to come visit.
But that's the exciting part about having these specific toys, right? Because they allow you to make the best glimpse of the future. All right, so these devices, and I'm going to turn this one on real quick, but they're designed like a handheld. They look like all-in-one devices. But the beauty of these specific processors is that they're meant to replicate the same processing or same architecture as what we see on our traditional laptops and computers. So they're a lot closer to an Intel CPU, i9s, i7.
Right.
This one specifically, the reason I was bringing this up is because they run, of course, on the... Sorry.
I just say, those are some
But they run on the Windows 11, so pretty much it's a portable laptop.
Yeah.
So anything that runs on a laptop, x86, the same software they would normally install on a Windows computer, will install on these low form factor CPUs and operating system. Now, there is a limitation of power consumption. You can use a laptop for 3 hours. This guy running a high-end game like, let's say, Star Citizen or any of the newer games, this will probably last like 30 minutes running it.
Yeah.
So how do you account for high desktop processing, split computing? So we have seen traditional. Actually, let me pull this one out.
He's pulling out bare graphics cards now.
Yeah, so I'm pulling out a bare graphics card, which is a traditional desktop card, and we all know, the form factor. But this is specifically what I wanted to talk about. So this is the PCI connector. So this is what the CPU on a traditional desktop allows the graphics card to communicate and perform to its maximum capabilities, which allows you to get, all the cool stuff that you visually see on the monitor. That doesn't exist didn't exist for mobile CPUs until the last few years, where split computing has really started to dominate the space. We have seen companies like Asus that have revisited the PCI connector and building new tools, new connections. This is I think they're called external display, eGPU, but essentially they're looking at USB-C to kind of push the bandwidth, and then a special connector that, similar to what we see with PCI, enabling you to allow traditional graphics processing to communicate with low form factor CPUs that are already designed to run these games and these operations. Now, there's a new term that companies like Apple introduced into to our industry, which is spatial computing. And a lot of people saw that at first and they thought it was a marketing shtick, right? Because we're so used to seeing people reapproach messaging, and it usually does have a marketing relativity to it, but the fundamentals of it all are quite differently. We're seeing all-in-one headsets like we see with the Quest 3, that CPU isn't housing everything. It's housing the calibration, the games, the operating system. All of those games are going to be running in this chip. But at the same time, within the next year, we're going to see new companies introduce the same exact CPU, but running top-class GPU inside the hardware using special connectors like we see with these devices, running all on the headset. And for that, there is a weight reality. There is a battery space, right? Because you have to dedicate now a new form factor, similar to what we see with the Quest 2 and the 3, where you only have enough space for one giant CPU in the headset because of cooling restrictions. But Apple introduced a headset with two CPUs, and one's handling the spatial tracking, right? So that CPU is doing everything that the headset requires in order for it to function without it doing anything else. Similar, or rather a new approach to how Quest is doing it, where everything is running on the chipset.
Yep. So bridge that gap for me, Jose, because
yes,
it was probably my favorite part of Apple's unveiling of the Apple Vision Pro, was the fact that they had this, kind of like what you have if you're a streamer and you've done your years or whatever, and you end up with a dual PC setup. You got one PC running the game, one PC dealing with the stream, and taking the load off means the two are no longer competing, and there's quite a value in that. So now I'm trying to understand. So I saw it on an Apple Vision Pro's circuit diagram, and they showed the two, and they explained it quite eloquently how they would handle, just like you have said, the two different sets of operations.
Correct.
How does that connect us back to what you see for Meta, Qualcomm, and this Meta Quest Lite?
The realities of scaling of hardware. The current architecture that Meta is accustomed their developers to is going to be theoretically limited by the progress of these devices. They're going to get smaller, but the processing ain't going to theoretically get better or faster. So we're starting to see now the big dogs that make CPUs come in and say, how do we allow a company like Qualcomm that has dominated the space, that has already fundamentally dominated the eco space when it comes to these CPUs handling spatial data, tracking data, and now they're working with the companies that make the GPUs, that make the graphics cards, the companies that we normally see on laptop computers and desktop computers, and they're going to be bringing those chips and communicating with their Qualcomm chips. And that requires a new industry of hardware, a new revisiting of operating systems. And that's what I'm mostly excited about, right? The Android operating system, and it's something that I talk quite a bit, was designed for mobile cell phone based CPUs. They built the ecosystem that we know today, but they were fundamentally was designed with application per instance in mind. They were never designed with a world of, let's say, Minority Report or Windows, where you have multiple applications running at the same time. And
I'm wondering if you would, because I think you've lost me. I'm wondering, Adam, are you following, and do you have questions?
Yeah, I definitely asked.
You've definitely, I was following for the first half, and then you lost me the second half. So I'm still trying to piece together how this works, and I'm wondering what Rowdy and Adam are thinking. So can you both jump in?
I guess the best way to describe it, it's a very high level stuff. And trust me, I don't know if you've seen Bradley's stream too, like the guy, he said, I'm rambling like a madman, because it truly is a beginning of a brand new industry. What we normally see as VR headsets are going to be seen as VR headsets, and then there's going to be spatial computers. Spatial computers will pretty much be a lot closer to a laptop than a traditional headset that we know today. They're going to be able to handle high levels of graphics processing. They're going to be probably designed with some levels of remote hybrid rendering, maybe like with another desktop externally. They're going to work with ecosystems that are already established, like PC VR, right? And all of these games are going to be pretty much jumping over without any new developer interaction. So Half-Life Alyx running on an all-in-one headset.
And does it mean that Qualcomm ends up losing out to big GPU suppliers? Like they're biting into their market, basically?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why Qualcomm is being much smarter about it. They said, wait a minute, if these guys are already jumping in, then we should focus on dominating spatial architectures. And that's where we're going to see these CPUs, where the Qualcomm XR2 that everybody knows how to develop for is going to become essentially a CPU that's going to be working alongside a high CPU in the near term. And I think that's the announcement where Meta announced with LG, and they specifically mentioned a Quest Pro successor.
Right.
Which is very specific to what LG does. LG is a software company that works with hardware for high processing. They make really high level TVs.
You know what this feels like, Jose? This feels like when I've listened to a talk, and this is a compliment, from like John Carmack or something, and it goes through my brain once, and I go, yeah, I didn't get all of that. And then I watch it back like a year after whatever he was saying has come out. And then I watch it back and I go, oh yeah, it all did kind of happen out that way. Or that was an advantage. And I just couldn't see it at the time, but.
Yeah, I think once you get the visuals, like you start seeing like, I don't know, Half-Life Alyx side by side with a web browser in a VR headset. Yes. And you're like, wow, this is possible now. Like once you see it, that's when I'm really like, oh, okay, like this is kind of a big deal. Then you can actually alt tab in VR as a standalone headset, essentially. If that makes sense.
I'm glad that you mentioned the word alt tab, right? And that also leads to the Galea leaks, right? Where Valve, sadly, as Bradley and his team, like those enthusiasts have data mined upcoming devices that Valve is working on, and Valve is 100% approaching spatial computing architecture. Their work, and the really exciting part where and Bradley made this case, and the data goes kind of proves that seems to be the case. Is the Steam Deck was so successful that they actually turned the developers to target a specific hardware benchmark, and that hardware benchmark is already to run on a portable CPU. So you can just tell the developers, hey, you want to release a game for the VR version, the new Steam Deckard? You don't have to target any crazy headset, the target that doesn't exist. Target the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck is going to have the same CPU plus the high-end GPU. So you already have a benchmark to target. That is pretty much what it's going to be a portable in-your-eye Steam Deck that's going to be able to run any game that runs currently in the Steam Deck, but with the spatial CPU.
Hurry up already.
Yeah.
What?
It's
get it out. Yeah, I don't.
Hurry up already.
It's coming, and that's the reason we're talking about this.
I will make money. I will do things that I don't want to talk about.
But it's really cool to see, because we're going to see a point and within the next 5 years, in all of the headsets within this generation of headsets that have only one CPU, and we're going to call them, I guess they'll have a name. They'll probably call XR devices, and those are going to be pretty much similar to cell phones, which are going to replace cell phones. And that's the exciting part with Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm is working with 5G companies like T-Mobile and AT&T, and they're talking about decentralizing these headsets, activations, also the data that you can get with these headsets. You don't think that, the powers that be are not interested in that data, so they're going to be putting their backends onto that stuff. And it's a brand new industry. It's really cool that for the first time we're seeing a direct counterpart to laptops. A lot of high-end developers and engineers don't like that, right? Because displays are not yet at the realm of replacing a desktop computer or monitor. But CPU architecture-wise, we just got our feet very, very wet.
Interesting, because what I'm hearing from you is go invest in NVIDIA. That's what I'm kind of hearing.
Oh man, I would say go invest in companies that, and this is good. Oh man, I'm gonna get you guys. I swear, like, take this with a grain of salt. I am not saying this as do it, but I am now looking at companies that are designing headsets like the Somnium, who make large headsets with a lot of space. They're going to probably have an opportunity to probably transcend into that industry really easily, because unlike all these other headsets that started focusing smaller form factors, they're probably going to have it easier when it comes to space accommodation.
What is the space, because they would need to connect to something external?
Yeah, it's so imagine an XR2, like the same CPU that runs on the Quest 2,
right?
But connected to another CPU, and that requires the same amount of cooling, probably a little bit more cooling actually,
right?
And also the connectors between them, like the one I showed you, like this connector. The reason it's such short throw is because this is the theoretical limit that high level bandwidth can go.
Right.
And if you really want to go even faster, then you'll need to go straight onto the motherboard, and that's what PCI does at the moment. It's really cool stuff. It's a brand new industry that's being born. So now we're seeing the traditional motherboard companies revisiting the architectures between the CPU and the GPU, and also the PCI industry's like, wait a minute, we're not being left behind. And also the infrared companies that do traditional base station tracking are starting to now look at short distancing base stations, right? Like, instead of a giant base station that's looking at you on the corner doing 30 feet, what about a small little sensor that can do 10 feet and it's embedded onto your laptop or onto the bezel of your screen, and you can do all of the same things in your bedroom? It's really cool, the beginnings of this industry, and I wanted to kind of highlight this because it's hard to talk about, and I apologize that that it's that we're not seasoned in explaining this new forefront in technology, but I'm available to discuss longer. But it's very important to kind of start looking at these headsets, especially the all-in-one headsets, as eventually becoming actually quite powerful. We made conversations like Half-Life Alyx, and I've said it on the podcast before, like Half-Life Alyx cannot run on a Quest 3, right? But Half-Life Alyx running on a Quest 3 CPU plus GPU device, that's a game changer.
And that's what I'm hearing from you. And it's funny because it's gonna dovetail very nicely into our next subject here, but it's that concept of kind of extensibility beyond all we've had so far, largely in VR headsets, is single serving device, all within a walled garden, can't really tap into it, can't mod it, can't extend it, can't even extend the bloody storage, right? So it's an interesting realm. I look forward to that.
It's so beautiful, man. And I want to lead it with one little thing that it keeps playing in my head. And I said it as a joke, and actually got the hardcore VR people liked it a lot. But this is almost a near 30-year vendetta, being at the helm by Gabe Newell, especially when it comes to Valve's side of it all. Gabe was heavily part of in the 90s with the architecture that runs Windows today and the applications and how they communicate. And he's never been shy of his grievances with the goal of the operating system and how they function. And the Steam VR platform has, since the beginning of VR, we call them overlays, which is the ability for applications to float up in your screen. And all of this architecture that we're seeing kind of the gears is going to eventually design a world where a company like Valve or Microsoft will be able to reinvent what the operating system is, like Microsoft Windows, and have floating windows. And Valve, in their messaging, they're not ever going to use the word Windows.
Well,
they're calling them overlays. And it's really cool to see that, where Gabe Newell has seeded for almost 15 years in this industry and also 30 years in the making. This guy has been seeding the narrative, and there's going to be the Gen Alphas or whatever they're called, the new generation kids will never use the word Windows. They would say, oh yeah, click that overlay Xbox, or click that overlay, minimize that overlay, or do, it's right. It's so fundamentally psychological that it's just awesome.
No more
it goes
Amiga.
That way.
That's what Onikaze says.
You said what?
No more Amiga?
No more Amiga.
Oh, right. I thought you were trying to say, like, no more friend in Spanish. I was like, why? The Amiga, right.
No more friend.
No mi amigo. I was like, okay, fine.
I thought Rowdy was telling me he didn't want to be my friend anymore because I said, no, Rowdy, I take everything I say.
I don't
Thank
agree.
you for that.
No.
It definitely was lecture heavy for me, and I will have to pour over it again, as I normally do post podcast, and try to get my attention span to hold focus to the points you were trying to make there. But it's a very interesting future, and this goes right, but buttresses right up against the next one. No easy way to say this. Jizai bodies, or Jizai bodies. I don't know how to pronounce this. Jizai. Jizai?
I'm pretty sure it's Jizai.
Hey, we'll call it Jizai then. It's
No. We're gonna keep on calling it Jizzy.
I'm sorry, Japanese creators. This one is practically indescribable, honestly, but I'll try. Now imagine you had a carapace, a shell surrounding your body. You're no longer human, and you've merged with a cybernetic creature and attached an extra, not 4, but 6 arms. That's right, for the low price of your soul and a copy of Avatar, if you remember the big mechs they would jump into, a pair of engineers can affix the Jizzy arms. And what can they do, do you ask? Well, plenty. The Jizzy arms are a supernumerary. Supernumerary is such a cool word. A supernumerary robotic limb system consisting of a wearable base unit that looks, I'm going to say, like a subpack or a backpack computer, with 6 terminals and detachable robot arms. It's designed to allow social interaction between multiple wearers, such as an exchange of arms, like we do that, and possible interactions between digital cyborgs in a cyborg society. This description just blows my mind. Adam found this in some dark hole of the internet. I don't know where you found this, Adam.
How many can I have? How many can I attach? Maximum 4?
It's
6.
It's cool, but
6.
why do they have to make it so intimate? Like, it's a cool tech. Why do you have to, pardon the pun, but talk about hands and intimacy and hugging people? Like, there's way cooler things you could do with these than hugging people and touching people with them.
I think it's because of the reality. Honestly, the video. I don't know if we're gonna put the video in there, but the ballet. I understood the. You said it yourself. It's intimacy, right? They're associating you with connecting with your arms. I found it poetic. Like, I found it very beautiful. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a big sucker of like robotics and cyber. Yeah, I'm a sucker for all that. Like, I love the intimacy. I think it's really cool to see humans connect, I guess, to a deeper sense using robotics. But what that highlighted to me also was kind of the limitations of the technology. I was like they could have at least grabbed a cup of water and like
anything. But mechatronics are bloody complicated. The mechanized controlling with force, how that then goes to the wearer. I don't know. I mean, I looked at this and my first thought was the Japanese sex cult came up with this thing. Because clearly that's where it's come from.
Like, what would have been a great commercial is maybe if they did actually have, someone who happened to lose their arms or paraplegic, and they finally get to hug somebody not two people that have clearly well-working arms hugging each other with their robot arms.
That is such the American way of doing it. That is such an American thing.
They have functional arms. Why aren't they hugging
If they
with
call
the
it
robot
Jizai
ones?
arms, they should have done something else with it.
I think that would have worked for me. I think for me, I think I mentioned it in the podcast chat, but for me, it would have what I would have wanted is what would have sold me. It's like seeing like a guy like I don't know, like on his laptop, but the Jizai arm is holding the laptop up and the guy's typing, and the other another arm is like holding his drink, and the other one's like holding his backpack. Like, if you would have seen a guy walking and working and just everything is holding.
See, okay,
you know what I would have wanted?
That's super American. That productivity, we're always about wanting to do stuff. That's more American than hugging.
No, hang on. I hear Jose talking, but all I'm seeing in my mind is just the baseball hat with the straws coming down down the beer. That's what that is.
Like a pizza slice. The possibilities. Like, honestly, I was like, I want Jizzy arms. Like, you know what? Like, if you're listening, give me the Jizzy arm, guys.
The thing I wanted to see, because what I noticed in this video, there's so many cuts. So this must have been like, 100 takes or something. I want to see.
Shut down every 5 seconds.
I want to see like the bloopers. Where the arm starts like freaking out, and she's like, and the arm goes like. That's what I want to see.
There's a specific moment in the video where you can actually see the stutter. Like, I think like the hand of the ballet dancer is like reaching to the robot, and you can see it like stutter. So the lady like awkwardly starts dancing around the robotic arm, trying to make it look like it's meant to happen. Oh, it's beautiful. Honestly, I love the future.
I love the concept. Rowdy, there was a second video there as well, which I thought was kind of a little more badass, a little bit less awkward than the 2 girls, 1 cyborg arm. And it was
fair, well-known historical viral video. 2 girls, 1 cyborg.
It's coming. Anyway.
Jizzy arms.
Oh, sweet Jizzy arms. But we've seen it in like, I don't know, Spider-Man or whatever. You have someone who's got who's propped up by the arms. Who was it? Dr. Octopus or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Already.
Wait, is this the one you mean? Because I'm seeing now a dude doing ballet.
It's a dude. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a dude, and he's like standing on stage in the dark, and basically we gotta narrate this. I forgot for the audio listeners. I'm sorry. And then he's like, he looks like a Tibetan monk or something. That's the look of the guy. Maybe a martial artist or something. And he's got the Jizzy arms.
Yeah. No, that reminds me of I forgot the name of the game.
That's what
No, he looks to me like one of those like a fake cult leader who's trying to get you to see the light, and he's like in the darkness.
Yeah, it's a
Dude,
weird
this
one.
is like, you know what this actually makes me think of? I haven't seen this video. Like now that I look at it and Rowdy's like skipping through it.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played Metal Gear Solid 4?
I haven't.
PS3. Okay. So there is like I highly or look it up on YouTube. Like there's like when the game starts, Hideo Kojima, being the mastermind he is, he makes you immediately sold of the future that you're in by showing you like commercials of like TV of that time. I recommend like whoever wants to just look at your solid first 20 minutes cutscene channels and then compare it to this video. It is eerie. I don't know. Now I'm starting to think this is like a psyop.
Related?
Okay.
Who knows? And so this is
promo. It's not real. It's a game promo.
It's a game promo? Okay.
No, maybe. I don't know.
It has to be like
cool ideas.
Like now that I'm looking at this, like no way this guy got in this dark room stage and pulled out 4 animatronic arms and is that serious, looking like Steve Jobs. No.
It would be cool if it's smart marketing from like, I don't know, some kind of cyberpunk game in the future where they're pretending like this is a real thing, but it's actually, some kind of
like
game
Deus
related.
Ex.
This is,
wouldn't that be sick? That'd be sick.
I don't understand what it is. Like,
Jizz arms.
It's an art piece, is all I can take from it. Like, this isn't even helpful. You can't even give like a long distance hug, which, for anyone who's been in a long distance relationship, like that would be worth something. But
I don't know about that. I don't know about you could maybe like ship the arms to someone and then they can hug and they can literally like crush you when you're wearing the arms.
But they don't really look very like they actually be able to hold much. You know what I mean? Like they don't look like they have much force behind them. Neither the arms nor the fingers.
It'd be an uncomfortable hug. It'd be like an awkward hug where it's like
a limp fish hug.
From the
a 90-year-old woman who's like just very frail giving you a hug. Yeah, like that.
What if you're unsatisfied with the hug and now you're calling customer service and you have to find out that like half-assed hug that you got was actually the person that gave it to you and not the company or the product, and they have to tell you like, no sir, like that's really the hug that they intended for you to have. Like, I'm sorry. No, this must be defective.
It can't be right. This
can't be right. I expected a warmer embrace in this.
Okay, yeah, this is fucking weird. Okay, so the future is strange. I don't know what the hell's going on.
You're welcome.
We have a special spot every show where Jose pulls the plums out of the pudding, gives them a quick spit shine, and asks you to growl like a tiger for the camera. What the hell are you on about, Zim? I'm saying he's a photographer, so get on your damn knees and purr a little. This is releases. It's time travel. It's not supposed to make sense. Jose, over to you, my friend.
I love Adam's
I wish I had like a photographer energy and be like, yes, Gaga, or something like that. But I don't think I got that. So let's get on to releases. So I got 3 releases this week. All 3 games are well known, but I'm really excited specifically with these 3. And it goes back to marketing polish, man. I'm starting to see our beloved, VR industry starting to get that money, man, that the budget, the marketing, it's so good. And starting up with Dance Dash, it is a early access game, finally releases on September 14th, compatible with the Quest 2, with the Vive trackers and the Valve Index, so it's PC VR agnostic. It's releasing for $19.99. That's about 16 pounds. It is a full body tracking rhythm game. It's very close to, in the energy, the trailer, it reminded me a lot of Dance Dance Revolution, right? Dance Dash has been out for quite a while, and their marketing, the messaging behind it to be, talking and complimenting them isn't at the level that it is now. And you can tell that there is some serious development polish. There is a understanding of mechanics of how the human body works, and it's just cool to see finally releasing, and also a multi-platform approach. So that's $19.99, 16 pounds, September 14th on early access.
I got to try this.
I was gonna say, Adam, did you do that at GDC?
At GDC, and then very recently, they gave me like pretty much this version that's going to be released, and it's pretty cool. Like it is. I find it interesting how they were a tracker strap company they're like, screw it, let's make something to use our straps in. I mean, besides like VR chat, because it's not many game applications. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it actually is really good though. Like, I mean, I'm not very graceful, so like they have a shuffle mechanic,
That's
and I'm
always
really,
the thing,
really awkward as
right? Because like if you see these people in these videos, like, oh, they look so cool, and then like I record myself doing it, and I look like an absolute fool, like doing this. Like,
but it's fun. Like, recording aside, as long as I'm just in my own world, pretending like I'm a badass, I feel like I'm dancing okay.
How does it work though?
Myself.
Is my question. So like I get it if you've got a Vive or an Index and the tracking system in the base stations, but I'm seeing Quests. How does the Quest setup work?
It's
Well,
tracking
right
your
now
hands.
it's with PC VR, so Quest through Virtual Desktop or Airlink. But they are planning on having a Quest standalone that's I don't know.
With the trackers, I mean, are you strapping Oculus controllers to your feet?
To your feet, yeah.
Yep.
Quest controllers to your feet.
They have 3 different types of tracker types. They've got one for the Valve Index controllers that you strap to your ankles, one for the Quest 2 controllers, and then for the regular like Vive trackers. And I tried all 3 of them because they sent me all 3. They're not terrible. Like the Quest 2 ones are kind of weird because they go on the top of your foot, and so it straps underneath. But once you're in the game, you don't think about it too much. And the way that the anchor points that they have on how it attaches to your foot, it's pretty stable. Like you don't feel like, unless you are making it super loose, you don't feel like it's just gonna go flying off when you do a kick or anything.
So how do you get? So I'm confused here. So the software costs $20 or whatever Jose was saying, but the straps you need to get the straps shipped to yourself as well. Or?
Tape or
yeah, you could.
to your
I
foot.
mean,
Duct
the
tape
straps.
it?
So you can get either just the game itself, or you can get the game and the straps, or you could just like make your own ghetto wrap and just do it yourself. You don't need their straps, but it's probably gonna be much more comfortable with their straps.
That's what I'm so excited about. I'm excited to see people like on TikTok and all that, like using socks and stuff to like tie them and figuring out. It reminds me of Richie's Plank, where people were like trying to make their own pseudo like planks and platforms to play that game on. I love, and also the polish. It goes back to polish.
That is a good
really
ad.
Cool.
Good ad.
It's gorgeous. And up next I have another well-known game, Ruins Magus Complete, releasing on September 19th. This is the PSVR 2 release. It's already on Meta and PC VR. But the trailer, it is. As somebody who has played Ruins Magus before, I had my, just inaccessibilities with games like this. But in that trailer, it was almost like they immediately went like, hey guys, we addressed most of those concerns, right? We have, voice acting. And also it reminded me a lot of like Final Fantasy Online games, which is the right energy to go after, right? Once again, polish, marketing, people that know how to communicate these large scale games, and seeing that in the trailer was really cool, man. It's almost like, the PlayStation marketing team is taking their original, possibly like original created trailers and being like, we're remaking these guys.
The pastel colors in that, and the light shading is going to look awesome in PSVR 2.
Yes.
Huh.
It's so good. It honestly, it looks like an anime. It really, and it's that level, that polish. It's the polish. It actually made me go like, you know what? Let me replay this again. Let me revisit it. And that's it's super cool, right? Because these games are already once again established, and that's out September 19th on PSVR 2. It's already out on MetaQuest and on PC VR. It's $34.99. It's going to be about £28 on PSVR 2. And the last one I have, another well-known game, and same thing with the trailer, Broken Edge VR, releasing on September 19th. This is the combative brawler, swords, one-on-one. This is on September 19th for PSVR 2 and already on PC VR. It's coming out for $14.99, so that's about £12, and it's actually going to have a PlayStation Plus discount. So I believe you can get it for about £10, about £7, $10 for PlayStation Plus if you're a subscriber of that. But look at that trailer, man. It
seems to be the era of pastel colors.
Yeah.
This is a this is a fighter. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
The 1v1s are an interesting place because when I played them, they're fun, but I can't say that once I've owned that game, I've ever taken time to like
Play it again.
Ask a friend to come in and play it. And I've seen that model done maybe 5 times quite well. Yeah, that's the challenge for me, is because from 0 players and you need to get 2, and when 1 flakes out, it's again back to 0. Like, it's a little bit of a stumble session with multiplayer, I suppose. But
I truly
good for
agree.
friends, good for buddies,
and it goes to the value of marketing, right? In order to create that larger pool, you have to make the game look epic. And honestly, the Broken Edge trailer, it's honestly the whole polish, right? The play has no limits. That PlayStation weird push that it's like, hey, we're gamers. It's really cool to see the VR industry kind of getting that love, right? As somebody, I consider myself a gamer that games, not really necessarily platform specific. It's really cool to see the VR space get that level of polish. It's really cool. And yeah, that's all the 3 games that I wanted to highlight this week.
Right.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, thanks, Jose, for covering extra stuff this week. I appreciate that a lot. It's been fun. Chat, I want to say cheers for being here as well, those to you in chat today. Before we go back to daydreaming about all the potential use cases for those cyber arms, I'll reflect on any final topics you've got in chat and you'd like to bring up. Shoot them in now, and I'll cover off the show times. So, FReality Podcast, we drag race every fortnight, and we run on every other Saturday. YouTube and Twitch is the platform. This Big Brother podcast goes live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the UK. Don't you know, like? For our audio listeners, Spotify, SoundCloud, and the everlasting iTunes, you get your dues midweek following the live show, thanks to Sir Rowdy. And if you enjoyed this podcast, we thank you for your support, camaraderie, and look forward to the day when we can meet in person. Should that day never come, well, we'll see you in VR. And with that, thanks, Wolf, for the congrats, and Ender. Sorry about the links not working. We could probably enable those. I'm not too worried about you guys dropping illicit links. Sure, the things that you see from us are far worse than anything you could ever put in chat. Thanks for hanging out today, everybody. Guys, have you spotted anything that we want to call out otherwise?
No, I just want to say I appreciate all the little chats that happen like amongst each other about like, different games or PC VR versus standalone, or like I love seeing all the little side conversations, and it just like gets my brain going.
Yeah, for sure.
Best part of the show. All right, well, thanks for hanging out today, everybody. If you're listening back from the Autobahn, please eyes back on the road. But where we're going, and you all know this, we don't need roads. Bye.